Grab your beverages and turn up your interweb. Solving the world's problems 12 ounces at a time. It's Dudes and Beer. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to episode 342 of the Dudes and Beer podcast. So much going on. Number one, I am glad to be back on the book today because, well, you know, there was the outage yesterday, which leaves a lot of hearsay, leaves a lot of conjecture because it wasn't just one. It was every company owned by Facebook that went down yesterday. So we'll see what that brings about, everybody. But we will be getting into some of the whistleblower testimony today. John Bound from Daily News Collective sent us his first news report. Welcome. I mean, he's now doing like a weekly news segment for us. He gets into it a little bit. We've also got a specified clip from the FBI whistleblower today. I watched the whole testimony. It was absolutely fantastic, and I captured a little bit of it to share with y'all some of what she came forth with, because it was basically like, okay, Facebook is like a psyop for money. They basically have done nothing to curtail hate speech, calls to violence, child trafficking, anything. In fact, they've almost encouraged it, because that kerfuffle amongst people creates more content, which creates more views, which thereby creates more money. So it was this, evil 1980s cocaine commercial of like, we have to foment more reactions so we can get more content, so we can make more money, so we can foment more reactions, so we can make more content, so we can make more money. It's just this evil loop. And it was, wow, so phenomenal to hear her come out and her bravery with doing so. I know there was some discussion in the group earlier today about it. And, it's one of those folks. I am behind any whistleblower. I'm behind any whistleblower. It's hard to come forward with something like that. It's hard to put, as she put so well, literally her entire career on the line to come forward and talk about this, because her career has been made helping build algorithms like this, and that's what she gets into. And to get into this and even more, don't forget to go on by, join the Dudes and Beer group on Facebook, everybody. Curious Realm, formerly Dudes and Beer. Please do not forget, we are changing. Come October, we will actively be it is October. Come December, 8 episodes away from actively becoming the Curious Realm. So stop on by, check us out. That's where you can check out all the news. That's where you can check out the discussions. A lot of this stuff is what actively spawns the ideas for the episodes and the guests and stuff like that. So stop on by, join the conversation. Curious Realm, formerly Dudes and Beer. It will soon just be Curious Realm on Facebook. Speaking of Facebook, I made a great announcement this week that is utterly because of all you guys, and this applause right here is for all of y'all, because it's for y'all that I keep doing this show, and it is for y'all that we have officially been awarded the People's Choice Award from the People's Choice Podcast and Podcast Academy for the news and politics category. So it was pretty impressive. Let's play that clip real quick, and we can see what it was all about.
Incredible set of records behind them, and any of you that have never listened to LP,
Politico.
You should.
We were up against Politico.
Next category is the Majority Report News and Politics category. The nominees are, consider this: Dudes and Beer Podcast, 5-Minute News, Mr. Throwback Thursday, Pod News, Politico, EU Confidential, The Still Spying Podcast, Today Explained, Water Cooler Talk Podcast, and, yes, We Canada, The Progressive Guide to Getting the Fuck Out. Congratulations to the winner of the Majority News and Politics Report goes to Dudes and Beer Podcast. Congratulations.
Here's my message to Hello, People's Choice Podcast Awards. Chris Jordan here, host of the Dudes and Beer Podcast on the H2 Universal Network, coming to you from Austin, Texas. Let me begin by saying I am entirely humbled to not only be nominated for a People's Choice Podcast Award in the category of news and politics, but to have won. In addition to that, I would like to also thank my audience for your years of dedication and open minds to the hard conversations regarding humanity that we take on our show. I'd also like to give a full-hearted thank you to my wife Amy, my son Dalbus, as well as my family for your continued support in not only my mission with this show and its message, but with the continued support you have given me throughout the years in producing this show. Thank you again for the nomination. Thank you again for the award. Until next time, everybody, remember, if you can't be good at it. We'll see you on Dudes and Beer. Bye-bye.
Again, congratulations. In the religion and spirituality category,
I cannot tell
the nominees
you
are
what it means to be nominated for that, to be put into that, and to have actually won. I mean, granted, it's a contest that you enter, that you put your show in. I figured, we're on our way to rebrand. This is the moment. Like, the whole reason that we're rebranding was because we'd grown too big in so many ways, so that we had to rebrand in order to be able to grow larger. So it's because of you guys. It's because of y'all creating the conversation, keeping the conversation going. So thank y'all so much. Y'all mean the world to me. The show means the world to me. And with that, let's start getting into things this evening, because, I mean, we literally have so much. I'm going to say real quick, stop on by True Him Science, truehimscience.com. Use the code DUDES7 to get 7% off your entire purchase, as well as 2 25-milligram edibles for free. In addition to that, stop on by Podcast Cadet. PodcastCadet.com is your source for everything podcasting. We help podcasters wade through the waters of podcasting. So stop on by, check that out. Those are my calls to action, as well as telling you to go Google Curious Realm, as always. But that's all I'm doing, man, because we have so much to get into this evening. John Bound is going to be taking over our news segments for a little while, so we've got that. And then we're going to be getting into the Facebook whistleblower video. Here is that message from John Bound from Daily News Collective right now.
Axios reports $1 trillion platinum coin could be minted within hours of the Treasury Secretary's decision to do so, according to the former director of the United States Mint, Philip Deal. Why it matters? Congressional solutions to the debt ceiling problem could take weeks to implement, especially if the reconciliation process is used and time is running out. In case of emergency, $1 trillion coin could be deployed to bridge any gap between the money running out and the debt ceiling being raised. And as the New York Post reported, the headline reading, Garland calls in FBI to counter reported threats against school staffers. Attorney General Merrick Garland announced Monday that the FBI would take the lead on the law enforcement response to what Garland called a disturbing spike in harassment, intimidation, and threats of violence against school administrators, board members, teachers, and staff. This after a letter from the National School Board Association where they claimed to President Biden that America's public schools and its education leaders are under an immediate threat as parents grow frustrated with mask mandates being imposed on their children and critical race theory being injected into their curriculum. They went on to suggest that as these acts of malice, violence, and threats against public school officials have increased, the classification of these heinous acts should be the equivalent to a form of domestic terrorism and hate crimes, and asked that the administration review the question. The Attorney General appears to be taking them very seriously. Now let's go up to the Hill to witness the debacle that is Facebook. Facebook whistleblower Frances Haugen, according to CNBC, told a Senate panel Tuesday that Congress must intervene to solve the crisis created by her former employer's products. The former Facebook product manager for civic misinformation told lawmakers that Facebook consistently puts its own profits over users' health and safety, which is largely a result of its algorithm's design that steers users towards high engagement posts that in some cases can be more harmful, though she stopped short of accusing top executives of intentionally creating harmful products. She said that ultimately CEO Mark Zuckerberg had to be responsible for the impact of his business. And Zuckerberg's response from the Washington Post: "Gone is the familiar script in which Chief Executive Mark Zuckerberg issues a former apology, sometimes in long blogs in his personal Facebook page or live stream video for a congressional hearing, then takes responsibility and promises change and nothing happens. In its place, the company has deployed a slate of executives to mount a public defense while quibbling with the details of allegations from Frances Haugen, the former project manager who left Facebook, with tens of thousands of documents. Those documents detail the company's research into how it spreads hate, incites violence, and through its Instagram subsidiary contributes to teenage girls' negative body images and suicidal thoughts." And considering the outage that occurred at Facebook, the Jerusalem Post wrote, "An outage like the one that occurred on Monday is not unprecedented. Various large big tech sites have crashed in the past, usually for a short time. The question that should be asked increasingly by governments is how they can replicate or maintain communication in major internet systems in the case of an outage among major companies that are too big to fail. This is not an arbitrary thought experiment," they say. And from the Daily Mail, a violent street fight erupted in Paris on Sunday as fans of the gruesome Netflix horror series Squid Game waited for hours to get into a pop-up store dedicated to the show. In shocking scenes, fans started to brawl in the street after a 700-foot line formed to get into the Squid Game store, triggering a fight. Footage shared online shows several Parisians locked in a heated fistfight near the pop-up store. And in Ankara, Turkey, in a scene worthy of a comedy sketch, a Turkish man joined a search party for a missing person, not realizing the individual being pursued was himself. Beyan Mutlu, 51, went drinking with a friend in a forest in the town of Inagal, northwest Turkey, late Tuesday. His wife reported him missing after he didn't return home, and she heard he had walked away from his friend drunk.
Brick! Brick is dead!
No, Brick's alive!
Brick is dead! Look at him!
He's not dead! He's not dead, Brick. You're not dead.
You're Brick!
Brick, it's you!
He's dead!
No!
You are Brick! I am Brick!
Yes!
I'm alive!
Yes!
Of course!
You can find more news you can always use at dailynewscollective.com. I'm John Bound.
Wow, John Bound, thank you so much, man. Oh, sorry about that. Fumble fingers, folks. Wow. John Bound with Daily News Collective. He is always on point, always doing great stuff. We have been chatting. He wants to contribute more and more to the show. So he has started doing our news segment for us. And, man, it's incredible to see some of the stuff going on out there right now. And to see what Frances Haugen has come out with. That's about to be our next clip, folks, is the Facebook whistleblower, Frances Haugen. Mind-blowing is the easiest way to put it. And that's because some of us have been saying the entire time, do not forget, when a service is free, you are the product. Your opinions, your thoughts. There's a reason why I have never attached my son's name to a picture of him on Facebook. It's never happened. Never once. He's almost 4. And I refuse to. I will always refer to him as T-Man or something like that, but he will never, ever, ever be referred to by his name because I refuse to put that biometric data together for the system. If there's any point that I can, and my wife and I have the conversation regularly. We used to have it regularly with our Sean McCleskey about the fact that the next generation, my son's generation, will be the one to recoil against all of this and to say our privacy is sacred. See, it was us Gen Xers moving so fast and doing things and wanting all this cool stuff that kind of, I mean, it's kind of been the Wild West. We've had to create laws in the wake of it all, and sort it out in the background. And to hear Ms. Hogg come out, Frances Hogg, the Facebook whistleblower, come out against this is absolutely amazing. We're going to hear it from her own words, and we're going to hear one of the calls to action from one of the senators who was at today's hearing. All of this is from today's hearing, so let's check it out right now, folks.
Like, you have to choose between having lots of spam. Like, let's say, imagine we ordered our feeds by time, like on iMessage or on, there are other forms of social media that are chronologically based. They're going to say, you're going to get spammed, like you're not going to enjoy your feed. The reality is that those experiences have a lot of permutations. There are ways that we can make those experiences where computers don't regulate what we see. We together socially regulate what we see. But they don't want us to have that conversation because Facebook knows that when they pick out the content that we focus on using computers, we spend more time on their platform, they make more money. The dangers of engagement-based ranking are that Facebook knows that content that elicits an extreme reaction from you is more likely to get a click, a comment, or reshare. And it's interesting because those clicks and comments and reshares aren't even necessarily for your benefit. It's because they know that other people will produce more content if they get the likes and comments and reshares. They prioritize content in your feed so that you will give little hits of dopamine to your friends so they will create more content. And they have run experiments on people, producer-side experiments, where they have confirmed this.
So
yeah.
you and your part of the information you provided the Wall Street Journal, it's been found that Facebook altered its algorithm in an attempt to boost these meaningful social interactions, or MSI. But rather than strengthening bonds between family and friends on the platform, the algorithm instead rewarded more outrage and sensationalism. And I think Facebook would say that its algorithms are used to connect individuals with other friends and family that are largely positive. Do you believe that Facebook's algorithms make its platform a better place for most users, and should consumers have the option to use Facebook and Instagram without being manipulated by algorithms designed to keep them engaged on that platform?
I strongly believe, like I've spent most of my career working on systems like engagement-based ranking. Like when I come to you and say these things, I'm basically damning 10 years of my own work, right? Engagement-based ranking, Facebook says we can do it safely because we have AI. You know, the artificial intelligence will find the bad content that we know our engagement-based ranking is promoting. They've written blog posts on how they know engagement-based ranking is dangerous, but the AI will save us. Facebook's own research says they cannot adequately identify dangerous content, and as a result, those dangerous algorithms that they admit are picking up the extreme sentiments, the division. They can't protect us from the harms that they know exist in their own system. And so I don't think it's just a question of saying, should people have the option of choosing to not be manipulated by their algorithms? I think if we had appropriate oversight, or if we reformed 230 to make Facebook responsible for the consequences of their intentional ranking decisions, I think they would get rid of engagement-based ranking, because it is causing teenagers to be exposed to more anorexia content. It is pulling families apart. And in places like Ethiopia, it's literally fanning ethnic violence. I encourage reform of these platforms, not picking and choosing individual ideas, but instead making the platforms themselves safer, less twitchy, less reactive, less viral, because that's how we scalably solve these problems.
Thank you. Ms. Chair, I would simply say...
I've also introduced the Algorithmic Justice and Online Platform Transparency Act, which would, one, open the hood on Facebook and big tech's algorithms, so we know how Facebook is using our data to decide what content we see, and 2, ban discriminatory algorithms that harm vulnerable populations online, like showing employment and housing ads to white people, but not to black people in our country. Should Congress pass that bill?
Bias issues are a major issue for our democracy. During my time at Pinterest, I became very aware of the challenges of, like I mentioned before, it's difficult for us to understand how these algorithms actually act and perform. Facebook is aware of complaints today by people like African Americans saying that Reels doesn't give African Americans the same distribution as white people. And until we have transparency and our ability to confirm ourselves that Facebook's marketing messages are true, we will not have a system compatible with democracy.
So, I thank Senator Lee. I agree with you and your line of questions. I wrote Facebook asking them to explain that discrepancy, because Facebook, I think, is lying about targeting 13 to 15-year-olds. So here's my message for Mark Zuckerberg. Your time of invading our privacy, promoting toxic content, and preying on children and teens is over. Congress will be taking action. You can work with us or not work with us, but we will not allow your company to harm our children and our families and our democracy any longer. Thank you, Ms. Hogan. We will act.
Wow. Strong words from the good senator there at today's hearings, and I put the applause up for a good reason. Yeah, I use Facebook. I'm utilizing Facebook right now. This show has grown to the point that it has, partially because of Facebook. I'm not going to lie. One of my greatest compliments that I've gotten over the last year or so was actually from my wife, who said that I belong to a lot of groups online, and I belong to a lot of various groups. But yours is one of the only ones that I belong to where people freely post things, and it is not turned toxic over COVID. And like they were just saying, the use of the algorithm, the use and quote abuse of the algorithm is exactly what leads to that. And the fact that it's regularly used. Now, granted, you could say tinfoil hat all you want, folks, but I will always remind you that do not forget Facebook was initially funded in their initial round of funding by In-Q-Tel, the financial arm of the CIA that actively finds technologies like this, emerging technologies, that kind of stuff, and puts it out. And helps fund them. So, and one of the first things that happened was the overthrow of Egypt, the overthrow of the dictatorship in Egypt. That was one of the first things that occurred with Facebook. So, to know that Facebook is divisive, to know that it's purposefully dividing people in order to once again go through that cocaine cycle in the commercial of we're going to divide people so they'll interact with posts more, so that they'll make more content, so that we can make more money. It's one thing that rolls into another and eventually becomes some cartoonish Tom and Jerry snowball of private data and opinions and everything else. Now, granted, one of the members of the Dudes and Beer group today brought up the fact of this was an attempt of silencing free speech. I really beg to differ. Number one, don't forget, you're on a private platform. They're allowed to allow or disallow anything they please. This is not a public platform. It's not like it's a privately traded company. They're allowed to put whatever they want up. They're allowed to allow whoever they want up. So if it's the fact that, you were making those posts on your own website and they came and took you down, now you're talking about free speech. But you can't say that on a private platform. And the second part of our episode tonight, because tonight's really about mass shootings, and it's interesting that this stuff with Facebook and the fact that divisiveness is grown on there. There were a lot of internet sleuths in Facebook groups when the Mandalay Bay shooting happened. We will be talking tonight with survivor Shannon Ray Caffey. We will be talking tonight with investigator Mike Turber here in just a moment about the Mandalay Bay Massacre, the horrible, horrible shooting at the Route 91 Harvest Festival that happened on October 1st, 2017. Literally the largest mass shooting in American history. Yet still it gets no airplay. It's not sexy enough. There aren't enough children involved, or there's enough money involved that it's time to hush up any talk about it, which we'll get into. In the second part of our episode, we will be airing a very, very special Clubhouse session that happened a few days ago that I was given permission to air tonight as a special interview with Kelly Morales Jones. She is the ex-wife of Alex Jones, and she wanted to put out a response to the fact of the Sandy Hook decision that just came out. And it was interesting to see Alex's video that he put out. To, as many of you know, I was a producer with Alex for a little while in my career, and it was hard to hear him say things that he said that he's now guilty of, that he should be guilty of. He said them, and you can't say it as the media. You can't say it as anybody. It's not right. And that's why the judgment came down the way it did. But for him to put it into the realm of free speech and saying that his free speech is being stifled or attacked is hilarious, due to the fact that he denied discovery documents in court to the prosecution, to the people levying the lawsuit against him. That's fully illegal. Fully holds up the court system and is stifling their free speech as a complainant. And in addition to that, he makes everybody sign a non-disclosure agreement. Everybody. Doesn't matter what it is. Like, if you're walking through his threshold to have an appointment, you're signing an NDA. So you can't really decry free speech when you're doing that to begin with, much less the fact that what you said was defamous and damageable and damaging to people. And utterly, utterly false. And you made numerous things that were pretty close to calls to action. And it's a pretty revealing episode tonight, folks, to get into the stuff with Mandalay Bay, to get into the stuff with Alex and all that. So stay tuned for that in the second part. Before we bring our guest and regular guest and good friend, an investigator with 5x5 News, Mike Turber, on, let's check out the amazing trailer to the movie and documentary Money Machine.
We are talking about the largest mass shooting in the history of the United States.
This is a crazed lunatic.
My brother just killed 58 people. My dad was on the 10 most wanted FBI list. We're not normal people. Ah! Steve gambled $1.6 million at the Mandalay in the week before he did this. He was really, really angry with the gaming industry.
There's been accusations that there's multiple shooters. That has been proven to be false.
You had politicians grandstanding on this Vegas Strong movement to get elected.
Vegas Strong.
I'm turning tragedy into opportunity.
It was an election year, and it was camera time for Lombardo and his friends.
I want to thank Sheriff Lombardo for your leadership.
I'm getting FaceTime every day.
Almost every press conference, you saw one figure, and that was Steve Sisolak, using this as a springboard for his political campaign.
He used the tragedy to get elected.
While the hashtag Vegas Strong campaign raised over $10 million, less than $20,000 were distributed to the victims in the first 5 months.
We want those records released.
If they came out and said what really happened, I think they're afraid of a period of time where people say it's not safe to go to Vegas.
And nothing happens in Las Vegas without the ring of a cash register.
MGM Resorts is suing the victims.
They are being sued for getting shot.
Shameful, disgusting, outrageous.
The newly released video shows Las Vegas police waiting in the hallway as Stephen Paddock continues to murder people.
Oh my God.
Lives could have been saved if they would have taken action.
They were fibbing the whole time about being such big heroes. They were hiding in the hallway. I asked them, are you stupid or are you incompetent?
Please stop asking your question.
You hear officers directly saying, turn your cameras off.
I'm telling you right now, there's more than one shooter. Could be as many as 3. We saw multiple muzzle flashes coming out that window.
There is no conspiracy.
Can't trust it! Yeah, can't trust this!
Available now on video on demand.
The amazing documentary, folks, and it's quite literally to go through and watch the footage to see what happened that night. And I remember the night that it happened. I remember distinctly.
What is it?
I don't know.
Welcome back to the show, Mike Turber. How are you doing this evening, my friend?
Sir, I am doing par excellence. I'm doing fine. Still battling this little medical issue I've had for a while now, but I'm kicking right along, doing okay.
It's not the COVID, is it?
How'd you know? No, definitely not COVID. It is called the hernia. God, you think I was taking care of this now? Yeah, that too. But being out here for I've been out here for over a year now, which was only supposed to be a couple of months. Yeah, it's been over a year.
Wow.
It was last August when I came out here. Crazy, huh?
Yeah,
that's
man.
when I came through. I came through and saw you. Remember?
I know. I know.
You were there,
man. Wow.
Oh man.
Well,
a crazy time. Never thought I'd be here this long.
Well, and we we met because of the whole Mandalay Bay incident.
Actually, Shannon Caffey, he's the guy that put us together.
Absolutely.
He'll be on here shortly.
He'll be joining us this evening. I contacted a couple other survivors, and survivors in different ways. They were not even like on the ground where that massive shooting was taking place, where all of that madness was going on in the festival. They were actively in the Mandalay Bay. They were there working a show. One of them is a group member on Dudes and Beer. The other one is a good friend that I've known for years and years, that we all did production work together. And they were there at a show when all this went down. And I mean, one of them, and I've known him once again for years, almost 20 years now. It's crazy. But he still to this day carries his room key from that night.
I actually, it's funny you mentioned that. I actually have the keys I had when I was on the 32nd floor myself. So yeah, I wasn't there that night, but I can see somebody doing that.
Well, and it wasn't just that. It's also the fact that like after that he's a lot of us carry the little tactical mole backpacks, all that kind of stuff, because you can fit all kinds of goodies in it. But his tactical pouch in the back had a piece of bulletproof armor, like quarter, like pinky thick, body molded to the back, like armor. He was like, I'm never again, not going out without this.
Wow.
Like that, and he's a pretty rock solid guy. But I remember him describing it to me that he was like, when I saw police officers and people in SWAT gear scared.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's when I knew something was going on.
That was like your storm event, if you want to call it that. You've got a shooter in a prone position, in an elevated position, which is ideal.
Yeah.
And the way the lighting was and things like that, and him being recessed in the room, you could tell where the shots were coming from. You could see everybody turn the correct direction.
Yeah.
To determine where the shots are coming from, but also the echoes and what have you gave the appearance of shots coming from other areas, even though it was the same shot. Just heard reverberating. But I've been in situations. I've been shot before. I've been in situations where I've heard gunfire and things like that. But not in this environment. I mean, you're talking about people going to see a concert. They're going there with their family. It's a country concert event. It's a festival. I mean, it's just all of the things. It was family friendly and everything. And it's not like your concert where you go in and you get assigned seats and stuff like this. I mean, you've got everyone up to the stage and singing and holding their beer and whole 9 yards, and then this thing just happens, and just the panic. And keep in mind, I've seen. I had to look at every video possible to come up with the audio solution for the audio forensics, and so as I'm watching this, and of course I had the Melissa Ramirez video, which is the video that I brought to the table, so to speak, and that video has affected me for life. I mean, I've seen a lot of things in that video because I found it, and I sat there for 3 days as I was going through it, trying to determine what do I do. And there's a lot of people that were not at the event that were also affected in various ways, and a lot of people don't understand that. But it did. But the thing is in no way, shape, or form could I say that I could relate to anyone that was at the event, like Shannon, who will be on here shortly. I mean, he's told me the story a few times, and then I've watched his video, and you can hear it in his face. And when he's telling Andrew, it just don't leave me, because I could sense that both of them were trying to get out of there, and that leaving your partner and having that mental picture of that would just be devastating. I can empathize with that greatly.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's just it. There's one thing to being in a firefight. If you've talked to soldiers or people that have been through such a situation. But to go through the sustained barrage that these people went through, like most soldiers haven't even seen that kind of.
Yeah, and they're kind of expect. There's an expectation of that to some, obviously to any degree, but not at a concert. I mean, it's like no one could have possibly predicted that kind of thing. And the people that are at a concert, keep in mind, probably over 50% of the people had not been in the military, and some people are just the type of people that just don't go in the military, so they don't think in that fashion. They don't think, oh wow, there's a stage and there's like buildings around and people looking around from a tactical standpoint, going, wow, this is like a perfect scenario for a shooting, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You don't think that way. You're going to a damn concert, man, and we can't even do that. I mean, it's just it's a sad series of events that this country's put itself through with all the mass shootings and stuff that we have. It's unprecedented in the world. We're the only ones with it.
Well, absolutely, and granted, there are off things that happen. There was the whole the one that happened at the prep school, like on the island in what was that like. It wasn't Iceland, but it was up there. Think Finland or something like that. And then there was the one in Ethiopia a few years ago, again at a girls' prep school. And there are a few, but it's interesting to see the proliferation of them, and you know, I think more than anything, Mike, it's our reaction to them that's more interesting to see. And once again, as I preface this at the beginning, this is the largest mass shooting in the history of the United States. Like this,
and with go ahead.
No. I was going to say the numbers are staggering.
They're unbelievable. I mean, you got 1,169 shots fired. Of those shots fired, you have over 500 that are injured, or 800 or so that, you know, with various other injuries from running and trampling and stuff like this. But the number of people actually shot, and then the number actually killed. I mean, of course, you can say the shooting fish in a barrel scenario and all these different things, and those are actually true. I get that part. But that is where I guess a lot of the, you know, some of the conspiracy theories came out of just the overwhelming awe that someone would have, especially when they found out this is a 64-year-old man, mild, blah, 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 never raises his voice, all kinds of, you know, things that just no bells and whistles go off to say, wow, this guy's probably going to do something one day.
This dude's just going to snap one day. Like, there was no falling down to this dude. You know?
No, nothing at all. And the thing about it was, which made it so bizarre also, after the shooting, the FBI comes in and they're doing their investigation, and Eric Paddock, who goes out and, you know, talks to them, talks to the LVMPD, and comes back. And then we're told that the report will be coming out at some future date. They didn't preface the report. They didn't say that, the report's going to be done by these 25 people we hired for the BAU unit, the Behavioral Analysis Unit, that are not even FBI employees. These are just some people that we put together to go over the evidence that's already been gathered, and they're not allowed to even ask questions of anyone. They were not allowed to ask anyone a question, period. So we get the report, and man, so many things happened during this investigation, and so many things happened after, you know, the shooting, and as you go through all of the different steps, you've got, they're going to sue the victims. Okay, that there's a maneuver, and then all these different things that happen, and then to top it off is like the final nail of like the holy crap, what the hell is going on here? We get a 2.5-page report. When you look at some of the other shootings, you look at Sandy Hook, you go to Parkland, you name any shooting period that anyone's done an investigation. And the report that comes out that basically discusses the motive or anything having to do with ballistics and all these different things, those reports are anywhere from 500 to 1,500 or more pages. This was 2.5 pages. You know, and it's like they had a top 10 list. It was literally 10 items that they put on a list of the reasons why they think that Stephen Paddock did this, but none of them equated to motive. They could not get motive. So me and Eric sat down one day and just basically came up with what the motive was based on my talks with him, my investigation, and Eric knowing his brother. Why did this happen? You know, and I don't know. It's just this whole thing was bizarre from the beginning. I mean, this is obviously the largest investigation I've ever been in as far as shooting is concerned. And you know, you sit back and when you go there and you talk to the people, you talk to the victims. Like Shannon and Andrea were the very first people I met. The very first people I met face to face. You know, and you can see something's gone. You know, something was taken from these people, and they needed answers, and no one gave them answers, and that just ate at me. And I said to myself, I'm going to get answers. You know, I don't care what it takes, what I have to do. I'm going to try to get these people answers. And then, you know, and then at the same time, you have to fight off the conspiracy theorists and stuff with this disinformation, them calling me disinformation. It's just, you know, that whole battle, which was done on the sidelines, so to speak. But in the end, I feel very confident about the investigation that was done, especially on my end and some of that. There's several people that actually did some really good investigative work that were not in law enforcement. I'm not law enforcement. And we're giving people answers. And that so many people came up to me and said, I'm so glad you're doing this, because I don't know who to listen to. And I hear about helicopters and I hear about ninjas in trees. And I'm like, after a while, you just...
And hey, even Mike.
Yeah. I know.
I still hold my chest. I still hold my finger on the chess piece. I refuse to take my finger off the bishop. I might want to move him. I don't know. But
because there's enough history where things have happened like that, where people have been told a story, and then somehow down the road, some obscure piece of information or evidence pops up, and then it changes everything.
Look at the rabbit hole of soft disclosure we are going down now. And the one thing that I said the whole time was that he used to be an accountant for Lockheed Martin. Yep. The first shots that he fired were at the gas storage container over near where the Janet planes take off. So
that's
what I held was that, he was upset with things not coming out. And when that didn't go, well, there's a crowd of people, so that became option number 2. That was my hypothesis. And like I said, I still hold my finger on the bishop. Because there's a lot of soft disclosure coming out, and there's a lot of wild stuff coming out. So for that to come down the line, who knows? But quite honestly, the stuff that because you and Ram Dennison basically had unfettered access to the Paddock family, and were the first ones to get exclusive interviews with Eric Paddock, his brother, who is now passed, unfortunately.
It took about six months to piece that together to get to get that interview. I don't want to say soften Eric up or anything like that, because that wasn't the case at all. Mine and Eric's relationship from the beginning was one of just I'm going to be here. If you need to talk through someone that you can trust will do exactly what you say, because he was already mad at RJ for messing some things up. And I said no problem. I don't have any agenda. I just want to get to the truth. And if during our talks I'm able to get closer to what I feel is what actually happened that day, all I ask from you is that I can report on that with no hesitation.
Yeah.
And he never put any caveats on anything. He just said if I ever mentioned him directly, that he would appreciate it if I would bring that to his attention first. I said, no problem at all. I had no issue with that at all. But this Bruce has passed, and there was a lot of weird things going on with him, and now I don't know if I've announced this. I'm sure I've announced it before, but the mother has passed as well. Passed away as well. So she's gone.
Wow.
And that was a secret kind of held for a while. We didn't release that because I think there was a lot of things going on in the background that needed to be done to get all of the victims fund with the sale of the houses and anything else that was being done was being put through that. And then to have the people that make the bump stock sue the victims fund. I just, man, that guy lives near you, bro. You might have to take a trip somewhere. I can't say. I mean, so much has happened to the people of this case.
Now, granted, like we actively had Michael Cargill on the show whenever all this first happened, and he was the first one that said that it was not a fully automatic, that it was a bump stock, just by the rate of fire and everything else that he was hearing, and being a bump stock user himself. And I want to say he actually sued the government for making him turn in his bump stock. And not compensating.
Destroy him. and that to me,
not compensating
him
for stock that he paid for on the shelf that he then had to turn in via federal decree.
Yeah.
And so
See, I don't agree with that. If something is legal at the time that you make it, produce it, or whatever you do, and you didn't like ramp up, it's like if you were making 500 units a month, and then you hear it's going to go illegal, so you pump up to 10,000 units a month, then I could see that being an issue. But that wasn't the case here. They actually made him take the stuff off the shelf. If somebody came into my business and said, "Hey, these were legal yesterday, but they're legal today. You need to destroy them," I'll say, "Get the hell out of here."
Not just that, but we're going to come and take them and not compensate you.
Yeah, and not only that, the device is not what did the crime. I get it. I mean, he could have chose other ways to do it, and I understand all that. And there are valid arguments on the other side that say, well, he probably couldn't.
I'm not even going to say what he could have done because I don't want to give anybody ideas, Mike.
Yeah.
But there were literally 100 different things he could have done that would have been 100 times more efficient than what he did.
Right.
Which was basically...
Right. And I remember during the Waco thing. The British Davidians, they had Hellfire. They thought they had automatic weapons too, but what they had was Hellfire triggers that they purchased from a company called American Survivalist up in Virginia. Well, I had just sold American Survivalist a whole bunch of switchblades, and so the FBI, the day I'm watching Waco on the news, FBI is coming to my building telling me I need to get a lawyer and I need to get switchblades out of my building, blah blah blah. And I'm like, what are you talking? This is Florida, bro. Switchblades illegal. So I don't know where you came from.
What Eric did, what Stephen did was what any regular VIP, somebody who, as stated, spent millions the week before this incident at Mandalay Bay, like 1.6 million at the machines, stuff like that. Because it's not like he was a high stakes poker player or something like that, or something where he was playing against the house. He was playing random odd machines at crazy, crazy stakes and money.
Right.
And earning mad VIP points, And, here we see footage of him like any VIP. Hey, here's my cart and a half of luggage that I'm bringing up today to my suite room, for the next week and a half.
And that was the very first question that I was asked whenever I went to the attorneys, and I gave them the Melissa Ramirez video because I did not want to give it to the FBI. There's no chance, there wasn't a snowball's chance in hell that I was going to give that video to the FBI. So I gave it to the attorney and said, you know what, you decide what to do with it. And of course, we put it on Fox, on Tucker Carlson, what have you. But and that has some blowback as well, and I fully understand it. But at the same time, it's part of history and what have you. But as the very next day, Craig Island, who's actually in the same city that you were in, Craig Island, he used to be a senator there, and he asked on Fox News that one of the questions was, how did they get the weapons to the room? Well, at the time, they didn't know all about the service elevators and so forth, so I decided to pursue that, and that was one of the very first things I did, was to go up the service elevators to see just what's necessary. The question was, do you need a key card? Do you need to have somebody with you? All these questions that we didn't know the answer to because we didn't have footage of it or anything. And back then, MGM was not answering any question, not one question that Catherine Lombardo, rest her soul, she's passed. That not one question was answered, so they were really struggling to try to get any answers. And I said, listen, any question that you have that you think that even remotely that you need an answer to, just let me know, and I'll see what I can do. And when I did that, I was floored, because they stated that they had 24-hour security on the elevators. Well, they did on the guest elevators. But that's not the elevators that he took.
Yeah.
He took the service elevators. There was still no security. On November 17th of 2018, I think it was, right, after the shooting, they basically, on 2017, they stated that they had put 24-hour security on the elevators. But I rode those elevators 27 times before I decided, you know what? No one is approaching me. No one stopped me. No one's asked me anything. And so I said, well, let me get somebody that's controversial here to go up with me. So I grabbed Laura Loomer and said, hey, Laura, what are you doing?
Yep.
You want to go for a ride? And I figured that might shake some stuff up. But I wrote, 50 times. But people go, well, what's the big deal about riding the service elevators? Well, that's how the weapons were taken to the room. Who knows if it would have been any different if he would have taken them up the regular guest elevators or what have you, but it was so convenient to be able to do that. You give somebody a $100 bill. I think it was customary to give them $100 bills to bring it up. And that kind of makes people quiet. They don't really talk about how they help out the customers there. Crazy times, man.
Well,
absolutely.
And let's start going into some of the details of Stephen Paddock real quick, and
sure, his
lifestyle. What led up to this cumulative moment? Because like we said, he wasn't somebody that was necessarily prone to he wasn't politically motivated in any way. He wasn't religiously motivated in any way. He didn't lean either way, politically or religiously. So there was no manifesto. There was nothing.
Nothing.
So,
and there was a lot of rumors that went around that he hated Republicans for some reason, or and he felt that there would be a larger portion of them at a country music concert, which is absolutely positively true, but not that he had that. Not that he had any propensity towards towards Republicans in any way. There's no predilection for that at all. And the more I delved into it, the more I realized, from a political, religious, whatever standpoint, I'm almost identical. I don't have a real political agenda one way or another. I lean towards Republican side because I lean towards giving people, the freedom to do the things they need to do that made this country great to begin with. So I get that, but then there's the other end of the spectrum. And as you move forward and you try your best to get into the mind of Stephen Paddock, keep in mind, no one has heard his voice. No one has seen him on a video. The only video that people have seen was his slip and fall, and over at the was it Palms or Rio, where he had that lawsuit, and that was one of the issues that he had, was that he failed to win that lawsuit. I've seen the pictures. And he did not fake the injuries in any way, shape, or form. No one would beat the hell out of their own legs to reproduce that look. But yeah, so you have that. And the other thing these are things that people may not readily know. He could not take his blood pressure medication. Now, that doesn't sound like a big deal, but when you can't take your blood pressure medication, it causes some other things to happen. One of which is if you have a pilot's license, you're not allowed to fly.
Yep.
So his passion, and the reason why he didn't take it is because it made him really sick. I mean, his blood pressure medication just really made him sick, nauseous, or what have you, and it just made him so miserable that he just stopped taking it and just lived with the situation that comes along with high blood pressure. And so, since he could not, do some of the things that people with high blood pressure have issues, and then they know what they are. I don't have to go into them. But one of the side effects things is that he was not able to fly, and that was a major passion. So things were being removed from him. So one, he started having trouble with Mary Lou Danley and his relationship, what have you, because of some of the extenuating circumstances from his health.
Yeah.
And then he couldn't fly. He lost the lawsuit with the Rio. And he had left Reno, where he was like a bigger fish in a small pond, just like our teaser does for the video. And in doing that, while he was there, he was king of the hill. And they started removing the comps from him because it was just, I guess it was becoming, a cost factor for them. So he said, well, I'll go to Vegas where they've got plenty of money to give me comps. And then they started doing the same thing there. They would not allow him to enter, or if he entered a tournament, the other people could get 3 times points, but not him.
Yeah.
various things like that. So after a while, that lifestyle that he got used to, that he really wanted to maintain, was taken away.
Yeah, because, I mean, hey, whenever you're talking 3 times points on $100,000, that's one thing, but 3,000 points on 1.6 in a week of gambling, that's a different story.
That's huge. Yeah, but here's the thing. Anyone listening to this would go, but that's not the guy lost his. Oh, come on, Mike. The guy doesn't get points. He can't fly. That gives him reason to kill 58 people that night, and two more died after that. But 58 that evening. I'm not going for that, and I get that too. But if you study the mindsets of some of these people who have some of the emotional, social, because he was a socially distant, kind of felt awkward in some situations. But he was nice, and no one said any really bad thing about him, any ill will. But something happened. He snapped, or whatever you want to call it. I won't say he snapped because this was planned over a long period of time.
Oh yeah.
But there's something going on in our society that causes people to do these things, and then of course, having the ready access to firearms like we do here, yes, that is a contributing factor. I can't argue that, but I can't say it's the predominant factor. In no way, shape, or form is it the predominant factor. Because people...
No,
anyway.
Yeah, and it's the fact of, those that are willing will find a way.
Yeah.
Like whether it's like, I'm going to go out and run a bulldozer for the day and then plow it through a crowd of people, what have you.
Yeah, and keep in mind he had like 50 pounds of thermite. Not thermite. He had 50 pounds of what was thermite? Tannerite. Tannerite. I was thinking thermite. There's something wrong with thermite. 9/11. I went 9/11 thermite, nanothermite. My brain's like going all over that. That's another show.
No, and he had 50 pounds of tannerite on him. Like I said, there were 100 more ways to be 100 times more efficient to do something.
Mm-hmm.
What he did was to make a statement,
right?
And that's why you do something along those lines.
But here's the thing. You and I both, and everyone listening to this, or everyone has any inkling as to what was going on there or wants to know what's going on and what happened in Vegas, has to think the following thought. Well, if he had this agenda and he wanted to get people's attention, where's the note? Where's the manifesto? What is it that we need to look at to prevent this from happening? Now, according to Eric, and I have to agree to a point, I'm not 100% on board with this, but he knew Stephen's ways of doing things where he would rather leave people guessing than give them the answer. And that to him, because there's a sick side to this that people don't want to hear. But when people start doing this, they get an adrenaline rush, the dopamine rush, everything you could possibly imagine. And as they're doing it, you'll see some people, if they have the correct personality traits, they'll start laughing. They will start smiling because they're living inside whatever world they created for themselves, whatever sick fantasy it is that they have to live through to produce what they're doing. And they're living it. And that to them is, I don't want to say it's I don't want to use a sexual term or whatever, but that is the climax of the pinnacle of what they're trying to accomplish, and they're doing. So, and there's just so many things that happen during this. I mean, the investigation side has a lot of story to it, but the story is the people. The people that were there, the people that were running, the things that we see, the panic, the not knowing which way to go, and all of these things, and just the sheer number of people that were there. And if he would have, he started shooting at the tanks at about the 10:08 and 10:09 mark, which means I was like you in the beginning. I thought the first shots were towards the tanks, but we found out they weren't. So at 10:08 to 10:09, he fired 6 shots towards the tanks. if he would have been able to accomplish what he was trying to do. Now, back in the day, if you remember, I could not tell you what he was shooting at. I can now tell you what he was shooting at. He was not shooting at the tanks, per se. He was shooting at a specific part of the tank. On the top of the tank was a pressure release valve. Yeah. And that valve, I did say this before. I think you were actually the first person I told that to. But the FAA has some issue with that. When I was talking to them, they said, well, we're taking protective measures to prevent this from possibly happening. So that's what he was shooting at, and he knew that he had to that jet fuel has to be atomized before it would ignite.
Absolutely, same thing as a gas tank. You can send a bullet through a gas tank all day long, and it will not explode. You send the second bullet through with the spark, now it will, because there's air in it. It's the atomization, it's the fumes that are flammable.
No, well, see, on regular gas, it'll explode because of the fumes. But when you shoot it, you could shoot it diesel or kerosene. You could literally take a match and throw it in it; it will not ignite. You have to. That stuff has to be sprayed. In a small particulate matter, atomized is the proper term, and then you get it. And that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to get that valve hit, and that was it. Yep, that was it.
Wild. And I am still waiting to hear from Shannon.
You want to know why he missed?
But why did he miss?
He missed. This is my theory for it, but I think I can pretty well back this up. The way he was shooting, the prone position that he was shooting at was laying across that bed inside 134 to aim at tanks. I did the same position when I was in the room just below him. And I felt like this was the only way you could do it. But he never practiced while shooting on a bed. And as you know, when you're on a bed, when you have to hold your breathing when you're trying to shoot these super accurate shots, and you just can't do it. Your elbows are moving around the bed, and you're trying to hold that position, it just can't be done. So, but that was it. So here we got Shannon coming on.
I am actually actively waiting to hear from Shannon right now. I have not heard from him yet.
Yeah,
I know he was at work. So
correct.
But
I'll hang around.
Well, and it's interesting. Let's get into a little bit more, because as we've discussed before, there were so many groundbreaking things that came out with this case, and so many things that were utterly wrong with this case and the way it was handled, from the timeline shifting every other day. To police not turning on body cameras, to ending up the body cameras that were on recording police just hanging out in the hallway, listening to him spray down on people. What was it that led to this perfect storm of an event?
Well, let's talk about the you mentioned the body worn camera, and that seems that is a. I mean, that's what we see. We see what happens on the body-worn camera. So there's several incidents that happened during that time that were filmed on body-worn cameras. Everybody saw and said, what in the hell is going on? So you have an officer who is on the floor below. He's on the 31st floor, to the one floor below where Paddock was, listening to the shots being fired, and this officer froze. He absolutely froze. And so the people that were with him, he had security from Mandalay Bay who were looking around going, why aren't in their minds, you could just see in their face that they're wondering, why aren't we going towards the shooting?
Yeah.
And this officer is cowered down. Well, he was a coward in the corner of this little alcove where the door was, and going, oh my God, and he's listening to these shots being fired. But at the same time, over the radio, you do hear someone basically say, hunker down. You got a shooter from an elevated position firing. And that call was meant for the people that were down at the venue, or the officers that were on the ground level. If you're in the building, he's not at an elevated position with you. You're at the same position he is. Go up there, shoot through the door, do whatever you got to do, throw a garbage can down the way, whatever you can to distract him. So that was one scenario. That officer was fired.
And subsequently, he's now back on the force. Now, the weird thing about that is that officer was a training officer. That was your officer that actually taught you what to do in this exact same scenario. So there's one thing. Then, as you go through, there was a time when they turned the body-worn camera footage off. If you remember, they say, turn off your cameras, turn off your cameras, turn off your cameras.
Yeah.
How many times have you ever heard an officer walk around telling other officers to turn off your cameras? Well, there was a reason for that. I'm going to go ahead and reveal the reason for that.
Please.
The reason for that was because a certain person was apparently there that night. Now, according to my source, I won't mention his name, the source, but I'm going to go ahead and reveal tonight, for the first time on your show, who that person was that was at the concert. That person was Prince Harry.
Oh, wow.
Yep. So that's your release. You've got it. You won the award. Congratulations, by the way. And I figured who's better, who shows that I actually reveal this on, but yours. That was awesome, dude. When you told me that what had happened, I could just.
Thank you, bud.
I would love to have been a fly on the wall when you got that information, because that just had to just. Oh my God! I could just see. I was smiling ear to ear. I could just imagine what you were doing. I'm so proud of you. So proud of you. That was awesome.
Well, it's things like this and stories like this and keeping on stories like this that have placed us there, Mike. Because I'm like you. I am dogged in this pursuit. I refuse to let it go. Like, you cannot say that all these other shootings are groundbreaking and gonna change the course of humanity, and leave, quite literally, as the statistics show, 60 people dead and 411 wounded.
Right. This case is unprecedented. There is no case to compare it to.
None.
It has. It really is its own. It's its own chapter. It's its own thing. It stands on its own, and it's not because I'm trying to make it grandiose or just because I investigated it that my case is better than yours. It's nothing like that at all. This is just simple fact. There's never been a case even remotely close to this. You'd have to go back to the Texas Tower shooting to get something that would be even remotely considered in the ballpark. But there's just nothing like it. Yeah. The planning that was put into this. Now, I could plan this in 5 minutes. He took a year to plan this, but I can't plan it and do it and go around to get this done by watching what he did. This man went out and he didn't buy a weapon and a whole bunch of clips. He bought more weapons. He knew that there was a chance that something might jam or something, or he wanted a cool barrel and just keep going. Yeah. That is sick. That is absolutely sick and demented to think that he went through this process and mindset to produce that much carnage or whatever. I don't like to use that word carnage. It just doesn't sound right. But just to produce that much damage or I don't want to say the other words that come to mind because I just don't like saying it. But, to get into that mindset to think, what was he thinking? Why was he thinking this way? Is it something that we can identify in future people? I think we can. I don't think we can see the pattern where we go, oh, this man's about to do blah, blah, blah. Let's put him in jail for 3 days just to calm him down. Yeah. We've got all those laws in place, but I don't know this.
This is on different level because, of course, those red flag laws, those laws that exist and are in place, like that's typically for when somebody's reported by a family member or a loved one, and the police catch those folks all the time, There are those cases regularly where that occurs, but once again, this guy did not live the extremist life.
No.
He wasn't roaming around in a van, cruising around places, picking up random stuff, or touting any kind of religious value behind what he was doing.
Exactly.
His family knew nothing about it.
No. And I had talks with Eric about that. I said, because Eric, the days after this, and I keep in mind, of course, everybody remembers Eric's interview on CBS and what have you, where he was acting somewhat bizarre or estranged or whatever you want to say. And so that's the Eric everyone has kind of fixated on, But the Eric that I know, and I'm some people say, you're friends with Eric? Well, yeah, the guy's actually a cool guy. I mean, he's intelligent. But the main thing was I contacted him initially and said, hey, I just let you know, I'm just a one-man band kind of thing. I'm not nothing special. I'm not going to knock down your door and have 10 cameras in your face. None of that shit. Yeah. I just want to talk. I just want to figure this out and help you figure it out. And so I guess eventually he came around to that. So it took a few months. But in the talks that I've had with him, things that came out in the conversations, like the things that were, when he was growing up, the very first weapon that Eric ever fired was a .357 Magnum. I think it was 7, 8, 9 years old. The first gun you shoot is that one. Holy crap! But that was what Stephen was, the older brother, the father figure, because the father was gone. The father was, on the FBI's most wanted list, and he was, his father had his own issues, his own deals, and all these different things. And some people think that was Stephen trying to one up his father. That could be a very small contributing factor, but I don't think that was a primary factor. But it could be in there somewhere. I don't know.
Well, and let's get into that real quick, because you have to kind of explore that avenue of thought. His father was on the FBI 10 most wanted list for what? Was it like armed robbery? Was he like a second DB Cooper or what?
Well, yeah, I think. Plus he tried to run over an FBI agent, but I think that was more of an accident than what people purport it to be. But I have the psychological profile on his father, the one that was submitted to court, and that basically lists his father as a narcissistic personality disorder. He was basically considered a psychopath. And so forth. So all of these different things that people would look at and go, wow, that's pretty much what a killer would be. But his dad didn't do what he did. And so the question remains, was Stephen that? In the behavioral analysis unit at the FBI would not come out and just basically state that, or and I get so frustrated with that report. It's just like, God, they left so much on the table and so many answers that needed to be gotten. And it's just,
Well, and that's just it. There, once again, a 2.5-page report for the largest mass shooting in United States history, and wrapped up to zero fanfare. No questions asked about. I mean, there are still active lawsuits against the Las Vegas Sheriff's Department, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
there are. And
for blocking some information.
Yeah, well, that's actually been somewhat resolved, because no one. What happened was the Las Vegas Review Journal was pretty much the only one going to court, and it became an issue. But the bigger issue I have is that there's still body-worn camera footage that we don't have. And keep in mind that the big deal about this was it was an election year for Lombardo.
Yeah.
And he remember the body-worn camera footage of the officer that froze in the hallway?
Yep.
Guess when that came out? That came out after the election.
Yeah.
Yep. And so many pieces that were detrimental towards LVMPD came out after the election.
Yeah.
That was by design. And if anyone from LVMPD tells me any different, I will know that person is a liar. And, my picture and Ramsey's picture is up on their when you go into their break room or whatever, wherever the room is that they go between, going out. If you see these people, don't interact with them.
Wow.
Wow. That's crazy.
Well, yeah, because, you've been banned from a couple of hotels because of it, stuff like that. And
I was challenged. The guy challenged me.
Yeah.
Steve wins. Yeah.
And I don't know if we will be joined by Shannon this evening or not. It seems as though he is still working, so that is the latest on that front. Fully understandable. He is as well a live AV technician, so right now, it's so nice to be back to work.
Right, yeah. I would. I can get that.
But before we do move on for the evening, let's kind of wrap this up, because I think a lot of people have forgotten once again about the victims and about everything that's happened with the victims. And, as opposed to the Boston bombing, which is, of course, where the insert city strong concept came from, no matter what it is. There's been a horrible fact that the coffers were raided. All the money that was actively raised for victims and everything else.
Even Sheriff Lombardo was involved in that, with a little controversy, and him and Sisolak.
Yeah.
It's like, where's the $12 million? The problem that was very noticeable early on. When you have a situation like this and someone loses their mom or their dad, or their mom and their dad, and so forth, then what happens is that bills aren't being paid that month. Their income stopped. And most of these people were younger people. They didn't have, I don't even have life insurance right now, and I'm how old am I? 55? Yeah, 55 now. Holy crap. I actually had to think about that. And so when you see this, those quickly produced funds were put together from what everyone thought was to handle these situations. People had to pay rent. People have to pay their car payment or what have you. And they weren't asking for a lot of money. They're talking about just food on the table, or just whatever, just to get a month or two just to get things ramped back up to normal. And those funds were sat on for so long.
Yeah,
they were eventually distributed. I did go in and actually finalize that, but the length of time that it took caused a lot more damage. It made this situation far more worse. When you're going through the loss of someone, and then you can't even afford to bury that person, or you can't afford to pay the rent the next month, or you got a child that has to go to school, you got to have daycare because you're at work. All these different things. Those are real factors. So you have that. You even have Jesus Campos, who was involved in a scam GoFundMe account that was put in his sister-in-law's name or some shit, so he could get sorry about the bad word. So he could get funding for his brother-in-law to get I think $25,000 or whatever to an attorney to represent him to become a citizen. Just wait, what? It's like, why did Jesus Campos need money? He was given $300,000. Come on. So.
Yeah, precisely. And, we were actually able to get a hold of Shannon Caffey. How are you doing this evening, Shannon?
Hey, man. I'm doing pretty good.
How was work today, buddy?
Oh, great. Just working away. Entertainment business.
That's what it's all about, my man. I'm so, like we were just saying, so glad to see everybody back to work in our industry. I can't wait to see you in person again soon, I hope. But you actively sent me a video, and before we get into that video, because that's right now, share with us your story of your experience the night of Mandalay Bay, because I think it is such an entirely moving story, and I think you were a prime example of somebody who was changed by that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that night, well, let me say, I was working at Mandalay Bay that day.
Oh.
Conference center. And I got off work, and I forgot they were having concerts that night. So I just went on home, didn't think nothing of it. And then my friend called me and was like, hey, you want some free tickets? Sure. So VIP ticket intent, and then hold on just a second. All right. Yeah, so we took the tickets, and my wife usually doesn't go with me, but she did this time.
Sure.
Like, okay, I'll go. We wanted to see what it was all about. Like, okay. So anyway, we went, and it was.
Yeah. You still there, Shannon? I know this story can be very emotional for Shannon. I've talked with him about it numerous times and had him on with it.
It is, especially with him and his wife at the same time. It's just it's a lot. It's a lot for someone to, because they're basically putting themselves back in that scenario. And in some ways, for some people, it actually helps to recall the story to keep that accurate memory alive, so to speak. And then for others, it's taboo,
Yeah,
I'll never forget when I first met Shannon. I was walking around the grounds with Laura Loomer, and as we were walking, we saw this couple that were walking in the distance. And I can't remember if Laura said something first or I did, but we asked them if they were there that night, and they said yes. So then we started talking to them, and and they're actually that. They kind of led me over to where Melissa's memorial was, and if it wasn't for them, I would have never had been able to find that video that was so helpful for a lot of people that night, because a lot of people didn't know which direction they went and all kinds of different things. But Shannon is they're literally, and I've said this before, and I truly mean this. I have met a few people in my life that are just genuine, solid, sincere, good people, right? Shannon is right up there, and like the top three of the people I've met. There's just not a bad bone in this person's body. There he is.
Yeah.
There he is. Hold on. Hey, all right. How's it going, buddy?
I was talking about. Hey, buddy. I was talking about you, man.
Well,
I heard you. Yeah.
Oh, you heard me? Oh, man. Dude, I love you so much, man. You're just an awesome person, and I'm so thankful to have you in my life. As bad as a friend as I've been with all the stuff I'm doing, there's not enough hours in a day. But man, I just miss being around you. The times we would go down and just like look for glass, or just be at the venue, just walking around and just seeing the event through your eyes is just it touches you. It really does. And that first interview that me and you did, I think it was with According to Joe. We were sitting in the car, and just all of a sudden, boom, we're in the middle of an interview with him, and then Charlton and what have you.
Yeah.
And
I remember that.
You tell the story. Yeah, that was amazing. Because that was the first time I actually heard you tell it that way.
Yeah.
It's I could see how it affects you, dude. So I know going back through it is not the easiest thing.
Yeah. And what? Because of course, Shannon, you and your wife have gone through a whole process since all of this happened to y'all. How has it changed you? How has it changed the way that you look at the city that you live in? How has it changed the way that you interact with the venues that you work at in your hometown? Everything else. Like, you sent me this amazing video that I'm going to play while you chat, which is actively the grounds as they exist right now from when you were out there. So tell us how this has changed your day-to-day.
Oh, gosh. From day to day, well, of course we had the pandemic, so it's all that. But back when, well, it's been 4 years now, so I really don't like working for MGM, but they're part of entertainment, so I work for them. I feel like there's a lot of corruption here in Vegas. Well, like everywhere, of course, but there's more of it here.
Yeah.
That's one way it's affected me. I'm going to go into this. I was at the Sunrise Service Memorial October 1st this year, a few days, whenever it was. And it was the first time I've been there, and it was like 7 a.m. in the morning, and Governor Sisolak, Sheriff Lombardo, and another commissioner, was there Jim Gibson or something. Anyway, that's the first time I actually saw them that close up, and I just felt a little nervous about that.
What and nervous in what way? Like, where? What was it like for you to see them there? It's something that they literally took such massive political advantage of.
Yeah. Well, I don't believe they told the whole truth about everything.
Sure.
So that's just my belief. I'm sure everybody's got different beliefs. But,
no, I'm in agreement, 100%. I'm in 100% agreement.
Oh yeah. So I believe. I just felt like they were like looking at me like, yeah, that's the guy. Well, there's more to it than Mike knows. That's the guy that went into Mandalay Bay.
Yeah.
With Mike Turber up the elevator. It's like they know something about it. They just kept on looking at me. Maybe it's just me, but I just felt,
I'll never forget taking up that elevator. I remember that day like it was yesterday because it was nerve wracking. For you, and remember the woman that came over from Caesars, and there was a reporter guy that took, and then But I remember going up that with you, and when we got in the elevator, we were both, because people got in the elevator with us. Remember that? And we were filming, and so we're playing with our phones, just trying to how do we hold our phones in such a way that no one sees us? And Shannon is like a deer in the headlights, man. He's like looking at me like, what do I do? And I'm like, you're doing fine, dude. You're okay. Oh man.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that.
Well, and, I remember the first time, because Shannon and I had worked together for a couple years easily before this happened, on various shows, things like that I would come into town for. And we'd gotten close. We knew each other. But when I found out that this happened and that you were present, and I remember Maurice McCoy, I think, was operating camera that night. And two other guys I know, as I said earlier in the show, were in the building, like actively working Mandalay Bay. Y'all were probably there working their event. Come to think of it.
Yeah.
But such a life-stealing moment, and stealing in, not just in the way of steals your resolve, changes the way you are, but also removes something from you. How has it changed the way that you interact with your city? What has it been for you as a survivor, and especially as somebody who is active in the survivors movement there and in the survivors community, it always does my heart so good whenever I see you and your wife sharing the things that y'all do from the Route 91 survivors groups, things like that on social media and everything else. Folks, if you want to find one to get behind, go find Shannon. He'll tell you the right ones to get behind. Because, there are so many, like the hashtag Vegas Strong thing. No, not that one. And that one collected millions of dollars. And as they showed in Money Machine, like, that went to the Money Machine. That did not go to survivors one lick. Let's get into that real quick, Shannon, about what people can do to help, what they can do to get involved, what they can do to bring more light to this.
Well, let's see. We went through tons of counseling, so for many years now. And so, and I like to put positive stuff or put real stuff. I like being real with people. So, I'd say, I have a whole bunch of different things. Pages
Is the
on
Resiliency
Facebook.
Center the primary, probably central focal point of where you would visit to do some of the other things you needed to do?
Yeah, Resiliency Center, they helped out tons.
Mm.
We have groups in there, and then they have groups and groups, and they just set up everything for us to help us out. We all meet together, different places, Zoom, in person, starting to get back to that.
Wow. Yeah.
We just get together and support each other and try to help people with the PTSD or whatever, like stuff like that, and just trying to move forward. We're always gonna it's always gonna be with us.
Yeah.
But we gotta live in life,
No, well, yeah, you definitely have to move forward, and I have been extraordinarily proud of the moves that you've made, the progress that you've made, not only personally but spiritually through all of this. It can be so easy to let a moment like this lord over you when it changes your life, and you have really put it to the Lord and taking control of it yourself. So good for you, my friend. Thank you so much for coming on tonight, sharing your story as always. Because I mean, even the couple of guys I know that were there in, like I said, in Mandalay Bay, like they can't even talk about it. Like, I think that, honestly, you're so candid at talking about it and with talking about it because of the work you've done in groups and with the people that you went through the event with, whereas these guys, hey, they're all, quote, road family, like they see each other like 4 or 5 times a year, and they shared that experience, but it's not like that they live in the same city, or that they get to talk about it with each other, or that they do talk about it with each other, and that is such an absolutely important thing, is that open discourse, not only as survivors, but as a society. And the more that we allow the machine to grab a hold of this topic and to not let the survivors be heard, the more that we allow social media to bury it, to not bring it to the top, to not have tens of thousands of followers of the survivors groups, things like that, we are doing the topic a disservice as a people. So that's my call to action to everybody is go out there, find the groups on Facebook. They are there, the Route 91 Survivors group, stuff like that. Go get involved. Go follow their stuff. Go share it. Shout this out to the world. We did it for Parkland. We did it for Sandy Hook. You know, why are we not doing it for the greatest mass tragedy in American history? Period.
That's right.
Yeah. Shannon has a group that he basically runs that highlights this. You know, it's something that people that were affected by this can go to and have positive messages come out of it. Shannon is just a continuous positive person.
He is.
I don't see him complaining. He's not like mad. You know, I can tell he's, you know, I know when he's mad because the frustration of not knowing why this happened and all these different things. I get all of that, but to listen to him when he's talking, he wants people to not necessarily move on. You got to remember these things, but at the same time to somehow gather positive thoughts so people can move forward in their lives in a more productive, positive way and be, you know, with their families and stuff like this. Because when people regress and they go back into themselves, you lose that person, and sometimes you actually physically lose the person.
Yeah,
and that's truly where it's sad. And people are just, there's so many that we've lost, and we hope that we just don't lose anymore. You know, it's just it's not. You know, I've lost 6 in just the last year on various different things, and I get it. I understand it. Well, Shannon's just a blessing for everyone.
Shannon, before we let you and Mike go here, wrapping this topic for the evening, tell everybody where they can go to become a member of the group, where they can go to support the group, where they can go to do things.
Yeah, it's on Facebook. It's called Route 91 Las Vegas Every Story Matters. I'll say it again. Route 91 Las Vegas Every Story Matters. And then there's one more. And this is for like people. Well, it's for everybody, but it's mostly for like people that wasn't inside the venue. And it's called Victims of Circumstance. Route 91 Victims of Circumstance. So, yeah. But mostly, the main one is Every Story Matters, Route 91 Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Every Story Matters. Hey, can I say one more thing?
Oh, absolutely, man. The floor is yours.
Hey, so this year, you know, we got to go, for the first time, we got to go into the venue. The people let us in. They opened the gates. We all stood there after we walked around, did our human chain October 1st, same time 4 years ago, got shot at and all that.
Yeah.
And then, so they opened the gates, and there was like tons of people just poured in.
Oh, wow.
There was lots of crying, lots of people putting flowers where their loved ones died. Just amazement. It was just like surreal feeling. I mean, some people say, I'd never go back there again, but it helped us. It find closure and more healing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we walked our route inside the venue.
Wow. That had to be very, very emotional. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It was emotional. I was just like, wow, I can't believe we're in here after 4 years.
Yeah.
And my wife said to me that night, and the next morning, I feel like there's something been lifted off me, and I feel really good. So that was a good thing.
Interesting. Yeah, and you know,
for her, it's impacted her in such a way that anything like that is just absolutely amazing. That's good, very good to hear.
Well, and to know, period, that literally such a cursory and passing decision leads down this rabbit hole in life, leads down this path in life, and leads to a moment that has not only changed y'all as individuals, but has steeled y'all's marriage in a different way, you know, and brought y'all together in a different way. Because like you said, it's not that, hey, like I get invited to events all the time too, man. Like we just walk in the door. So yeah, this was one of those rare times where your wife was like, yeah, all right, I'll go. You know?
Yeah.
So, that random chance decision.
Like right when you got there.
Yeah.
It was like you weren't there that long when it started.
Yeah.
Yeah. 30 minutes.
Wow.
Then it happened.
Yeah, and, you know, once again, like you said, to be able to go back, to visit that spot, to be able to, because there's one thing to going to the memorial. That's one of the horrible things. The memorial is nowhere near the spot.
Yeah.
It's like down the road.
That's always good. Yeah, and it's a great place, and it's wonderful and all that. But I've been a proponent of why is that there that far away, 7.5 miles away. I know of no memorial that is like this one. And it's not to take away from the memorial at all. I never mean any of that.
Wait. 7.5 miles? Because I knew it was down the road. I knew it was down the road. I did not know it was 7.5 friggin' miles down the road.
It is. It's just
you would not know. Because of course the perception in somebody's mind when they go to a memorial is, wow, man, this is where it happened. This is where it all went down. And just to like drive that peg home in the public's head of like, this happened down the road, not literally as it shows right here in Shannon's video, as I'll back it up, like in the shadow of Mandalay Bay, square on the Vegas Strip.
And I think a lot of the discussion about an appropriate memorial would be to do one at the location, but not have Mandalay Bay so visible, because it is a very overpowering thing to look up and see that was it. You know, it needs to be there because we have to. You know, it's like the book depository. You know, things. The World Trade Center, which obviously isn't there, but the footprints are. You know, so that to me is an important thing, and people died there.
Yeah.
That's where they left us and their spirits and what have you. And, you know, I'm not religious, so I can't discuss that in an appropriate manner. But I know the feelings and the emotions that people go through when they visit these sites, and they can't. It's not the same at the memorial. Now the Memorial Gardens, again, wonderful place, but it's just not the same. And when I did that video of the time lapse of going from where the shooting occurred to the memorial, you know, a lot of people looked at that and they were like, wow, that's a long way away.
Yeah, that's insane.
It's not like it's 100 yards out of the way because logistically they couldn't do it, you know.
Yeah.
It's like I can even see like the World Trade Center where if they had to move it a block down the way because they're building the new building on top of the same ground.
Sure.
I could get all that if they did that, but this kind of hurt. It kind of
that's
it bothered me more than it
up.
should because I wasn't there, and I felt like it bothered me a lot more than it should have, because I shouldn't have been that bothered by it. But you know, others appreciate the Memorial Gardens, and I do too. But it needs to be there.
Shannon,
and they're going to do it.
You had something else to pop up with, my friend. Go ahead.
One more thing. Well, you know, they're building a new memorial on the grounds, but they're putting us in the very back corner by that church, you know. But it's on the same ground.
Alabama.
But everybody I've talked to since then, even during our reunion this year, they want it up there where it happened.
Yeah.
Because that's where it happened, you know?
Yeah.
They want to put
it where the stage was. Yeah. It needs to be right there.
Yeah.
And they can do it. They can design it in such a way that they can still use the property for what they wanted to do with it. I get it.
Dedicated MGM shuttle stop to everybody. There you go. That's proper Vegas right there.
Or put up a fascia that's similar
this parking
to what
light
the stage
post
was.
in memoriam, like that's the kind of tasteless crap that you almost expect to hear from this situation. It's horrifying.
Yeah,
it's so
true.
entirely horrifying.
Shannon, do you think that there's a way that they could do the memorial that would be? Because it's important to hear what you think the memorial should be like. What are your thoughts?
I think they can't. I actually sit in on the board, like Zoom, for many months. Every month they have a meeting, and I could talk a few things, but and I'd ask them things. But all we can do is just continue saying we'd like to have it in the corner, if possible. Also, they are designing different things, like artsy kind of thing to honor the 58, and they want it to be kid friendly in some way.
Sure.
The memorial.
Yeah. People as a parent. Yeah.
I guess that's what you wanted to know. I'm not sure.
No, absolutely, and that's just it. To know that they're doing something is fantastic. Really, at this point, it should be something that, like you're saying, Shannon, they should be talking with you guys a whole lot more. They should be bringing it to you guys a whole lot more, and it's glad to hear that they finally are. And hopefully, like you said, they can bring it to a much more prominent space and give it the due that it deserves. So,
there's actually a couple, about 2 or 3 survivors on the committee, memorial committee, and then there's some county people, and I think there's a policeman and a few others, but so they have their say so, but sometimes I don't know about that.
Yeah.
It's like somebody's in patrol, but they do have like send out stuff for the survivors to say yes or no. We want this and that. So they do listen to people because they said we want it on the grounds. So we got it on the grounds, but not in the right place. So hopefully we can get it in the right place.
I would stick to your guns. I would stick to it and just say, look, this is important. And just bring up other memorials if you want. Just say, look, here's this memorial. Yeah, it's on the site. Here's this memorial. It is on the site. It's not even 100 yards away. It's there. This is it. And just because this property may be worth $50 million or whatever, and they're trying to do it, they can design something that would be appropriate for each of the locations where people feel that they lost a loved one. That area can be memorialized specifically for that individual forever, and still have the parking garage or whatever it is they need to do. And I understand it's going to be probably inappropriate during a football game, and they're going to have tailgate parties or whatever that's going to be so close.
Well, you might trip over it once it's in the middle of the 30-yard line.
You might.
Because you can't get rid of it if you put the stadium there.
Although the stadium's across the way. That's a beautiful stadium, by the way. The first time I got to see it completely.
But in all sincerity, to hear the fact, Shannon, that they are coming to you guys, that they are including y'all in this, it is such, I think, a huge step. But at the same time, we need to backpedal, and we need to make sure that, much like Parkland, much like our conversation here in a minute with the ex-wife of Alex Jones regarding the Sandy Hook parents, these are things that should not be forgotten. The reasons behind them should not be forgotten, and the impacts and repercussions of them should not be forgotten. So the fact that there are survivors like you out there, Shannon, bringing this to light, fighting the good fight, keeping keeping them at their word and making sure that they keep up with it. Good on you, my friend. The angels are with you, buddy.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time this evening. Shannon, thank you so much for your time after a very, very busy day. I'm going to go ahead and let you go. I love it. Yeah. He's got his Love Wins towel up.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, Shannon, we're going to go ahead and let you go, my friend. Mike, thank you so much, as always, for your time, for all your work, for everything that you're doing over at 5x5 News. Before we let you go, tell everybody, time for shameless self-promotion. Tell them where they can go to find all your stuff, bud.
Oh, I have no clue.
You have been taken down a lot of places.
I know. Probably the easiest thing to do is most of the stuff I try to put out on YouTube. Because my investigations are tailored towards specific answers that we're trying to get for people that are involved. That's something. So some of the stuff is not as timely as I'd like it to be. But if you check out YouTube, that's the primary location where I disseminate the information. So if you go to youtube.com/5x5 News US, that'll get you to that. Or just search 5x5 News. You'll find me.
All right. Well, Mike, once again, as always, thank you so much, my friend, for being there, for doing what you do, for everything, for all the leads that you give us, for the hot takes tonight. Huge announcements on that front. So as we let you go, we are going to bring up our next conversation, which is the amazing ex-wife of Alex Jones, Kelly Morales Jones, who recently invited me to a private chat room on Clubhouse to talk about the Sandy Hook decision, everything that just came out, the fact that Alex Jones has been found guilty and must pay reparations to the parents for all of the defamous things that he said about them, for the years and years and years of torment that he put them through, because listeners of his show would call them, threaten them, everything else. So let's get into that. He claims it his First Amendment right, and that now that this judgment has been rendered against him, that his First Amendment rights are being trod upon. But let's hear what the case really is. We actively have a lawyer in this conversation, as well as an ex-employee of Alex's who has testified in these hearings and everything else. Here is that interview.
This is Kelly
now.
Morales. This is my very first Clubhouse. I'm speaking today, this being the day after Alex Jones's, and everybody else. Amber, if you could, I don't know if you've got to get off, Amber. You're talking. It's okay. Hold on. I'm going to. I'm joined on stage by my good friend. A support system to me, Christopher Jordan, who was an on-air producer of Infowars for some time and who currently works in media production. Chris was just honored with the People's Choice Podcast Award just last night for the news politics category. And I will be being joined by, hopefully by another former Free Speech Systems employee, Rob Jacobson, who's in the room waiting to come on. Again, this is Kelly Morales. We had a little bit of a hiccup. This is my very first Clubhouse. And I'm here today because it's the day after Travis County, Texas judge rendered a default judgment against Alex in 2 of the Sandy Hook cases filed against him. The 2 Sandy Hook cases filed against him contained, to my understanding, or were filed rather, by multiple defendants. And of course, these defendants were the bereaved parents of the murdered elementary school children who were gunned down in Sandy Hook in 2012 and who subsequently were harassed and tormented and stalked, I believe, and shamed because Infowars.com put out information defaming their children who had been murdered, and saying that they were crisis actors, that they weren't real people, and doing this for years and years. And first of all, there's no amount of money that will ever alleviate the torment, harassment, and real horror of having their child's memories defamed before the world while they're grieving them. And I have an attorney in the room who I'm hoping can come on to talk about what a default judgment is, and I'm here to also explain to you that the judge has basically, to my understanding, decided that because of free speech systems and its employees, managers, people who are not here by name necessarily, but obviously include Alex Jones, who is my ex-husband, because their discovery failures, their repeat refusal to provide the discovery answers that were propounded of them, that it had taken so long, and the plaintiff's attorneys, the Sandy Hook plaintiff's attorneys, had requested for so long this basic information that every plaintiff has a right to, information they needed to be able to determine what, to prove up what had happened to them, to show that they had this cause of action, to present this before the fact finder, which is the judge, and the jury, that they had been denied these discovery answers for so long. The judge was like, enough is enough. That's it. I have found, because you have not done this, and I wasn't there, so I don't know exactly what you said, but my presumption is, if you protest too much, and obviously if you have responsibilities with the legal process and you don't comply, the judge can say, okay, that's it. Their cause has been proved up enough to me. And then she's now shifted the cause over to the jury, where they will decide what damages will be awarded these parents who have suffered this horrible tragedy. So I've spoken out a lot about Sandy Hook and this litigation because of several reasons. The first being, many, many years ago, I think I met Alex in 1999, and we were married in 2002. Many, many years ago, I helped Alex get this thing off the ground, which is Infowars.com, and push it up to a higher level. And I have long been extracted from that. I was, I think, pretty much not involved as of 2008 with Infowars. Production, like the content of it. Although, like, throughout time, when something was wrong, I would protest it. Like when he was saying these things about Sandy Hook, I believe that it's very clear that in the video Alex made yesterday, he actually said his family opposed it. That was me at the time, right? Back in 2012, as did others in Infowars who have come forward to say, who obviously, not only in this instance, but in many instances when Alex's judgment was clouded, and obviously, to those people, in my perception, incorrect, they spoke up, right? But I'm speaking out. I've cared about this for a long time. I've cared about the impact that misleading propaganda that's come out of Infowars, which really intensified after, when Roger Stone came on the scene, when he started selling the supplements and all of this nonsense. I feel responsible to speak out against Infowars. And actually, because I did that, because I spoke out against a platform, which is Infowars.com, which is owned by LLC, which is freespeechsystems.com. Because I did that, I lost my children. It was absolutely because of that. So, I have spoken out at great personal loss, and I have formed this very limited chat room, clubhouse room right now because I'm just trying to get the word out. But also, I think it's important generally to look at the Sandy Hook decisions broadly about the free speech debate. And so towards that, and because I had originally said I had started speaking out for many reasons, I also want to say that the Sandy Hook, the legal tactics that have been employed in the Sandy Hook cases against the plaintiffs that have filed them, the endless discovery delays by non-response or inadequate discovery response or bizarre and I believe, illegal discovery response, including, I don't know who remembers it here, when Alex or Infowars or Free Speech or whoever this group of people is it a corporation or is it a person? I think it's pretty clear that the two are very much enmeshed, but actually sent these parents' attorneys, these parents who had their children murdered and then had this platform say they weren't even real people and had people harassing them so much that I know some of them have had to move, that he actually sent them child pornography. He was under a federal investigation for that. Of course, like as in many other things, he's, shirked all responsibility for that. I contend that if you when you sign that you're giving discovery to somebody, responses to somebody, you're responsible for it. But regardless, these kind of legal tactics of delaying with discovery responses or abusive discovery on your side, demanding this and that and the other from the other side, which I'm sure has happened, which I'd be interested to find out if the Sandy Hook plaintiffs have protested as well. But also the tactics of actually threatening opposing counsel, like threatening, offering $1 million bounty for Chris Matei's head on a pike. I mean, and then really the real thing is the legal abusive process where, Alex has been misled by unscrupulous, unethical counsel to file I believe the court has found them to be meritless, appellate action after action. So basically to step out of the trial court to bring it to federal court or to do this or that or the other, to just keep these parents and their attorneys who are probably funding the litigation for them on a contingency basis or something like that, to keep this going so that all the way up to the Supreme Court, right, we have this writ of certiorari for free speech, right, which has been shot down, of course. And so I look at that and I look at what's happened to the Sandy Hook plaintiffs, and that is something that I have experienced in different forms in a very different way. And I do not equate what has happened to me and my family with the grief, sorrow, and loss of the Sandy Hook parents. But I lost my children for years. I believe my children are still endangered by what's going on and eminent express public statements that have been made regarding Alex's intention to continue to litigate, even though he agreed with me almost a year ago to basically what I thought was the final agreement of all of this. And so I'm here to discuss that. And so I see Chris Jordan is here with me. Chris, do you want to jump in? Yeah, jump in. Yeah. Tell people who you are.
I am, of course, a former InfoWars producer, one of his on-air producers for the radio show. Of course, he had, evening news, all that kind of stuff. I was during the day, during his big 4 or 5 hour block, for about a year. And yeah, it was an interesting environment. It definitely, gave me a verve for what I do, and a different twist. But I came in right as the Sandy Hook stuff was like shaking out, things had already been out there. He had already said stuff. And it was one of those that, I am one of them that he refers to in the video that I even had people that worked here that were like, hey, I was one of them that was like, hey, you could literally under the First Amendment probably say that the government paid somebody to come in and shoot children so that they will take your guns. You could probably say that and it would be protected under the First Amendment. You cannot say that people didn't die. You can't do that. That's not you can't do that. There is a reason why.
Well, maybe you could say that, but there's also that accountability.
You're definitely going to be held accountable for the action of saying it. You know, one of them is, and even on my show, like, I learned the hard lessons there. And hey, yeah, whenever the FBI came out and said, like, yeah, you know, conspiracy theory is now a form of domestic terrorism, I dropped that whole word from my show. We refer to hypothesis. And whenever, it's one of those that even listening to his video, it just blows my mind. Because there are so many things, even about the video, that we can play here, directly off his website. This was his response to the media's response to the judge's order. And it's mind-numbing to sit there and hear the guy talk about First Amendment rights, everything else, your right to free speech. This is what you have a right to. Yet still every single person that walks through his door has to sign an NDA.
Right. And I think you've hit a broader issue there, too. I know, Chris. I mean, I think you've hit a broader issue because I think all of us agree that our, you know, fundamental civil liberties are necessary. They're why we are the America that we are, that we have this free speech right, which is guaranteed by the Constitution. That is so important because the free speech rights that we have are not only to be able to say, you know, to be politically expressive or to, you know, do whatever you want publicly. They're exactly so you can speak out against, you know, you can have the right to redress your government, right? You can speak out against governmental things that are wrong, because if you can't do that, right, what are we living in? It's tyranny, right? That's a tyrannical system where if you publicly speak about something that's going on in a government system, be it, you know, any branch of the federal government or state government, you know, executive, judiciary or Congress, whatever it is, right? Then, or House and Senate, then you should be able to do that, because if you can't, we're looking at the reason why the country was founded in the first place, right? Tyranny. And also, well, let me just go ahead real quick, Chris, and I want to say, this is why this debate is really so important to me. And first of all, you know, I have an attorney in the room. I'm hoping he'll come up and talk. And I think it's important, so important, because I believe the public has really been misled to believe that, you know, various public people, whoever they may be, who have, you know, issued calls to action, or who have done, you know, have made threats or whatever, have engaged in what is not protected speech, or who have violated terms of service of corporations to which you have to agree in order to participate on these platforms like Twitter or Facebook, whatever it is, right? That when those people engage in non-protected speech or they violate terms of service, and if you don't like the terms of service, don't go on the thing, right? Start your own or get one on one of these other ones. But if they do that, and then they're held accountable for those actions, be it by a court of civil or criminal, you know, nature, or be it by the platforms themselves, well, so be it. That is not free speech. So I know, for example, Infowars has held countless money bombs or money bomb donation drives, saying that they've been victimized. Well, I have a real problem with that. And the real problem I have with that, and I don't want to get off this topic of Sandy Hook, because I believe that this is integral. And here's why, right, Chris? Because this free speech stance that Alex and Infowars have taken in the Sandy Hook case has delayed their case tremendously, has caused them grief, delay, you know, probably ongoing harassment and things of that nature. And so my position, my direct knowledge of this, like you said, you know, people are forced to sign NDAs. I have my own free speech restrained to the point that I'm in my first clubhouse room here with like maybe 6 people, because I haven't done a very good job of promoting it, trying to get the word out, because I can't,
That's all right.
I cannot publicly speak, right?
Hey, that's one of the reasons why I talk to you and why I've even had you on my show before you came under gag order with things and stuff like that with your court case. Because, like, and I got friends who still listen to Alex. I hold no judgment against them. I understand why they listen to him. However, when you got things as the son of divorcees, and, you know, a dad who I'm just going to say maybe wasn't like the best father figure. All right. Not a negligent father. He was there whenever I needed him, everything else. Just talked to him yesterday. But when you got headlines coming out of things like dailymail.uk exclusive, it's pretty down there, isn't it? Conspiracy theorist Alex Jones taunts his ex-wife by buzzing her home in a helicopter after the judge ordered him to stay away in a bitter custody battle. So yeah, when you're going to do something literally as childish as like, oh, he put this much of a barrier? Okay, well, that means she can't hear me from the fence line, so I'm going to get a helicopter and hover 1 foot above that.
Yeah, that was very...
You're telling me that's not a suppression of free speech? Or the fact that you're gagged from being able to bring that kind of stuff out in the public isn't a hindrance of free speech? I don't know what is. Because that's no hearsay or anything like that. Like, that's an actual thing that happened.
Right. And of course, you know, I'm actually also disallowed to record in a one-party state anything that would sort of negate any allegation. That would be, you know, so basically, like many people, like the Sandy Hook parents, whatever. And I don't really want to talk too much about me. I would say that was very terrifying for my child and for myself, and that it is, you know, clearly one of many instances of harassment at my home and of my person, and you know, in court, out of court, whatever, that I've experienced that I believe are unlawful. What I will say is that, you know, I hope that this case, the Sandy Hook case and their delays and this false argument and these legal tactics that have been, you know, launched at them can draw the public's, concern around civil court matters as much as, you know, because civil court is the court that all families go through, right? Yeah. So I have actually, as a guest speaker in our first ever clubhouse in my free speech protected room, I believe, which I've invited Alex Jones' counsel to inform, you know, to talk about the prior restraints they put on my free speech and to assure that they will or will not sue me. And they're not here, by the way. I have, Chris, if you could step off for just a second, I have John Duke, who is an attorney of, you know, very seasoned attorney, who's going to speak generally to help the public understand about the free speech protections that we have as people and in corporations, and about the impact. Well, it's up to him what he discusses, because I don't want to get too far into that. You know, he's an attorney and all. So here you go, John. Can you speak up? You there?
Hi. Yeah, I'm here. Kelly, can you hear me?
I sure can hear you, John. Thanks for coming on. Tell us a little bit about your legal background so people can understand that you really have studied the law, I think, starting at Oxford University. You want to give us a little background?
Oh, sure. So I'm an attorney. I've been practicing law for 17 years. Got my law degree from Boston University School of Law, even though I'm a Texan. I know I went up north. I guess a backwards carpetbagger. And then afterwards went to Oxford, and, you know, my specialty is in labor and employment law, with a heavy emphasis on labor, and free speech comes up a lot there, because unions and employers like to get in very public disputes about things, and First Amendment comes up quite frequently, you know, in that context. And one of the things that, you know, I want to talk about a little bit, you know, before we get too much into some of the First Amendment oddities of this, which I want to talk about, you know, in general terms, because while I'm somewhat familiar with these cases, I have not done a deep dive, you know, into Alex and the Sandy Hook and all of that stuff, and I'm, you know, more familiar with what's happened in Kelly's litigation against Alex. But the first thing that I want to bring up...
In defense, right? Mostly, right? Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry for interrupting you. Okay.
That's okay. So, kind of the starting point for considering, the First Amendment, free speech limitations, and, I'm putting aside, the right to petition and, all those other, free speech rights that there are, is that historically, John Stuart Mill, in this essay that he wrote on liberty, which I'm very familiar with because my Oxford dissertation was in large part built on that essay. He wrote something to the effect, I used to have it memorized, so please forgive me if I misquote it, but his defense of free speech was, if all mankind, except one person, were of one opinion, and that one person who had the contrary opinion, he was the only one that existed, mankind would be no more justified in silencing that one person than he, if he had the power, would be justified in silencing everybody else. He said something to that effect. Now,
exactly.
The Supreme
Court. So for the layperson, just basically, if one person can stop everybody else, right? What this means, right?
Yeah. What it means is everybody's voice should be equal.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. Nobody should be different from anybody else under the law for equity, right?
Well, yeah. When it comes to free speech, your opinion,
right.
Your opinion matters just as much as mine. Even though I disagree with pretty much everything Alex says, his opinion matters just as much as mine. Yes. And, the Supreme Court, has taken, this kind of simple notion of free speech being everyone having the equal right to speak or not to speak, because, you have the converse right to keep your mouth shut if you want. That's implied by the free speech right. But, the Supreme Court, has layered on certain doctrines, one in particular under New York Times against Sullivan, that are, very applicable to what Alex is trying to seize on, in a lot of his arguments, at least as I understand.
And for a layperson, what is that? What is he trying to seize on?
Well, what it is that so-called public figures, if you want to try and defame a public figure, or to be able to prove that you defamed a public figure, the public figure has to prove that the statements were made with so-called actual malice. Essentially, you knew what you were saying was false and all of that. So there's a higher burden to be able to defame a public figure.
And I think that my understanding, John, and John Duke, attorney at law, is that Alex's argument in Sandy Hook has been, hey, I can say whatever I want. I'm a member of the media. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. He's saying he's a member of the media, and he's also saying that he's a public figure.
Yeah, and I want to segue really quick, and I want you to keep talking. I know that we have Rob Jacobson in here, who is an editor and producer at Infowars and Free Speech System for years, and I want to make sure and give him some time, because when Alex is saying that about being a member of the media, I'm sure everybody in this clubhouse room remembers or has seen something about Alex Jones's central argument in the cases that have been published all over every sort of mainstream media outlet, that he is a performance actor. And I don't know that people understand necessarily why his attorneys argue that way and why he testified to confirm that argument. But that was to keep all evidence of Alex's behavior. And I'm not talking to his political speech at all. I'm talking about being drunk in public, accosting people, raging at people, being so intoxicated he had to go, excuse my language, piss on a tree, during a broadcast at an inauguration, that was him somehow, that kept all that evidence from coming in. And I'm just a mom, right? Like, this is about kids, right? The best interest standards for kids are fuzzy, but it's very clear that if you've got a parent who can't control themselves so much that they're getting publicly drunk or promoting the use of psychedelic drugs or smoking pot on the air or whatever it may be, and that their behavior is alarming just to anybody, like to a jury of our peers or whoever it would be that would be deciding the children's best interest, that is really important material evidence that should have come in that was denied. And of course, I look at the sort of the duality of the argument, which I believe is completely opposite. You know, I'm a performance actor in this court, so it doesn't matter. But in Sandy Hook, I'm going to be a media person because I can, you know, appeal this thing all the way up, I believe, or have been misled to believe, and I'm presuming this is the sort of the thing that's gone on in free speech systems corporate head. You know, I can appeal this thing all the way up to the Supreme Court because the media is protected. So saying that, I invite Rob Jacobson on the stage, who I believe has been recently involved. And I don't know exactly how to invite you. Can you come up, Rob, and just get on the stage and start talking? Or Chris, do you know how to get him up there? Here you go.
Rob,
invite to speak. Here you go.
Accept the invite to speak.
There he goes. I just sent him the invite. It's my fault. So Rob has some opinions about the Sandy Hook horror. I believe he spoke out against it in the past about his experiences of being whatever it is you want to talk about, Rob. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was part of two discovery cases. I was a witness to what happened inside, and I testified to the fact that, you know, I warned the writers basically that what they were doing were more or less accusing the parents of slain children of being liars in front of millions and millions of people. To the response that the writers basically laughed and made a joke, and that sums up the testimony that I gave.
What is your opinion about why they did this? Why all these people were they excited about defaming these children's memories? Were they?
Oh yeah, they were more than excited. They were. It was unreal. And I don't mean unreal in sort of like, wow, that's unbelievable. It was unreal to the point where they were outside of the reality of what they were doing. To the point, you know, like they were cult members, literally. And whatever Alex said was gospel, even to this day. So I briefly watched the beginning, the first third of that free speech video that Alex posted. And
yesterday, right, after the Sandy Hook ruling, right? The free speech video that we're referencing. And we have that clip for later that Chris is going to help play. Okay.
So I would like, after briefly seeing it, the thing that came to mind is that what people don't understand about somebody like Alex Jones is he will not stop. There's no stopping him. He cannot stop himself. He will not stop. So he's doing it again. So,
and I want to interject really quickly, Rob, and tell everybody that you're coming on you're speaking right now after having had a pretty major operation pretty recently, and that you have to get off pretty soon. But I also want to interject that I think that generally from talking to Chris and to you and to other people, like, you know, it's too bad that he can't stop. It's a very sad thing for him. And it's what I have always said is that really everything that he's done in the court system and outside of it has only been able to occur because his attorneys have empowered him, have egged him on to do these things, or the people around them that are making all this money or getting off on the publicity or whatever it is, right? That they are encouraging him to do this, right? Or they're in the inner circle. They get to fly on the jet. They get to go to the luxury vacation.
I think
whatever it is.
I think it's sort of he can't stop himself even if he wanted to. And I believe that the lawyers who are gaining money and all this stuff also egg him on, which whatever is compelling him to do this, it makes the urge stronger. I mean, he just, and that video by far proves it. So let me give some examples. For example, he uses his old tricks all the time. He has these same old tricks, bag of tricks.
Can I just interrupt you really quickly, though? Because you were the person, I've never been able to watch it. You told me about, I've never been able to watch Natural Born Killers. I tend to steer myself away from negative, scary, upsetting things and focus on the joy that I can find within the situation I'm in, which I do find a lot, by the way. And I encourage everybody to view the obstacle as a path, you know. But that said, you're the one who told me sort of this metaphor from National Border Killers about a rattlesnake. Tell me about. Can you remind me of that, Rob?
Yeah. It's the old thing about the and he uses it a lot. Alex actually used it during the Trump campaign when he made a whole video about this. And it's just some old tale that's saying, you know, some lady, an old woman nurses a rattlesnake back to health, and the rattlesnake winds up, once it's finally healthy and well, biting her and killing her. And just as before the venom finally kills her, she says, "Why did you do that to me? I aided you back to health. I cared for you." And he's like, "Silly woman, I'm a rattlesnake. What do you think I do? I bite you and kill you. That you've aided me back to health." And that's,
right. And maybe John can just hop in and give a general overview.
Well, let me Let me just decode Alex for.
Well, I want you to do that, Rob. But I want people to understand, because I think it's important. I think that the legal process is complicated to understand, and I'm hoping just to get John to hop in and talk about the general attorney rules that make it necessary for attorneys to protect clients that can't protect themselves, and to not, you know, empower them, encourage them, enable them to do things that are not really, you know, that could be abusive of the legal process. John?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, you know, as an attorney, you know, obviously you have an obligation to, you know, zealously represent your clients in litigation, you know, but there are bounds to it. You know, for example, you know, the way I always see my role is I can tell, you know, clients what they can and they can't do. And if they insist on pursuing a course of conduct on something they can't do, you know, I have an ethical obligation to, you know, depending on the egregiousness of it, you know, to step aside.
Right. And all attorneys have that obligation, right? So thank you, John. I'm going to go back to Rob because his time's limited. Basically, again, my perception, and I just want to really drive this point home, because I am somebody's ex-wife, and it could be well seen and understood and perceived that I have some sort of, you know, vengeance or, you know, vitriol towards my ex-husband. I mean, I look at Alex as somebody who really cannot control himself and should have long ago been stopped from doing things that I believe clearly have abused the legal process. And so my real beef is with the unethical actions of his counsel that have empowered him in the Sandy Hook cases that have allowed this to drag on, and against, obviously, in other litigation, which, Rob, you have been subjected to as well, right?
Right. Yes.
If I could just jump in real quick, because I think this is really important. You know, as far as talking about, you know, abuse of the legal process and the lawyer's role in that, because in using you know, the Texas court's ruling about the Sandy Hook case, and that is that, you know, my understanding of what happened here, judge warned Alex, you know, you got to cooperate with discovery, you got to produce what you got to produce. You know, if he didn't do that, then his attorneys got sanctioned, then he got sanctioned, and then the judge entered default, which default just means that you've waived all your defenses to liability. Damages are still an issue. But the important point is the attorney always gets sanctioned first before the client does, almost always. It's very exceptional that a client gets sanctioned first. I just
and by sanctioned, so some people in here might never have even been in the legal process, so that means usually either an admonishment, usually a sanction is a monetary sanction, right? Like you have to pay this amount because you've done something wrong. Is that correct?
Yes. It's generally a monetary sanction, a court order that someone, the attorney initially, and then, perhaps later, the attorney's client has to pay money. And typically it's in the form of attorney's fees to the other side, the amount of fees the other side incurred in
Like paying the attorney's fees of the people that you're opposing or that are opposing you, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right. And then it can graduate up to, having to pay fines to the court.
Right, and that can be a lot of money, right? Attorney's fees are it's not chump change, right? So thanks for clarifying that. So, and is there anything else you wanted to share right now because you came in?
No. I just wanted to kind of bring just kind of highlight that the sanctions almost always go to the attorney first. Because when you watch the video, Alex keeps talking about oh, he was deprived of his day in court and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, the judge gave him ample warning. And, as far as, his attorneys, I mean, they were well on notice, I strongly suspect they were sanctioned, well before this ever happened. And, if they wanted to pursue a course of conduct, contrary, to their ethical obligations and the court orders, rather than do that, they should have withdrawn.
Yeah, if they want to keep doing the same thing and the court has said stop doing the same thing, give these people a break, answer their questions, give them the evidence that they're requesting, right? Then they should have just given it or hopped off, right? And what I feel like happened there, I mean, maybe that's my opinion. Okay. I'm just going to say it as my opinion, in my humble opinion. I'm like, so what's happened there with that, in my opinion, from hearing what you just said and in my experience and in what I see also in the Sandy Hook, Connecticut cases, is despite all of these sanctions coming down first on the attorneys, who have an ethical duty, right, to not abuse the process of law and to guide their clients as to what they can and cannot do, or what they should and should not do, right? Their advisors, their counselors, right? That regardless, of all of this, because he's got this huge wallet, just sitting there waiting for them to get fees, they're willing to just go ahead and keep on doing it, or allow him to do it, or encourage him to do it by saying somehow that this is, egregious or whatever, when clearly it wasn't, because the judges are, subject to many canons and rules and constitution, all this. They're not just going to order sanctions, especially not on Alex Jones, when usually he publishes that and that could result in threats to their actual person. They're not going to just do that, right? So, and I think on that note, I'm going to go back to Rob. We're going to talk about your legal experiences. We're talking generally about, with great empathy and remorse for what the Sandy Hook parents have suffered. Again, reiterating, I'm reiterating my opinion that money will never bring back, or compensate for anything, any loss they've suffered by having their children that were gunned down in an elementary school, in 2012, defamed and made non-people by Infowars or free speech systems, right? So that said, I'm going to go back to Rob. Go ahead, Rob.
Okay. Just to go further on that point that was just made, what's going on in that video is he immediately starts the video by telling his audience that what happened to him, he tells half-truths. So Alex is the type of person who tells half-truths. He gaslights by going way back in time where barely anybody would remember the true circumstances of what's going on. And he fills in the blanks with his own, mostly fiction, or these are his old tricks. And then he pulls out these examples that he always uses, these go-tos. So what he does in this video is he starts out by saying that the jury, the American court system is in jeopardy because the jury is non-existent. He doesn't talk about the fact that he was asked for these documents by the court over and over again for 8 years, and he refuses. He jumps through hoops and bends over backwards and refuses somehow to not follow the judge's orders. He doesn't mention that part. All he mentions is that he got in trouble, and if he gets in trouble because of the court system, you're next. And he's talking to a group of people who are, for the most part, not legally educated. They don't know. These are people, mostly working class, middle Americans, who are, they listen to Alex Jones for mostly entertainment value, and what they pull out of it is paranoia, conspiracy.
Or because they associate themselves with this victim stance generally, and have been misled by their ignorance and by spins and red herrings such as these to believe that they've been, misserved constitutionally or whatever, right?
Exactly.
And I want to interject here too, though, because the reason why that video was so concerning to me and appalling is because, just a week ago or less, it was like a week ago, while I had been recently sued in yet another county in Texas, and while I was scrambling to get to the court to be able to at least get an order on the agreement that I reached with Alex back in December of last year, 2019, his attorneys were able to get imposed on me an order that neither reflected the agreement nor was on matters tried or heard, right? But which summarily gags my free speech. It's got what's called content-based prior restraint injunctions. That means you can't say this thing in the future or you're going to be in contempt of court. Well, that's unconstitutional, right? But also, I do want to point out that, I watched the video and he was talking about, the judge took away the jury and all of this. You don't get a jury. Well, I had a jury trial, people. I prevailed in the trial by jury in 2017. And what people probably don't know, and I'm going to try to help you understand it really quickly here, but the jury is the jury of our peers. It's like the most basic, central, fundamental point of our constitutional liberties to have the trial by jury. We only have it in Texas in family court, which is questionable, but we do have it. But the only thing the jury gets to decide is what rights and duties you have and to your children. That means the decisions you get to make about their medical, educational, and other similar decisions, right? And if you're the parent that gets to decide the primary residence, which is really important because where you live and where the primary residence of the kids is a county, is in whatever county you're in. And I live in a completely different county from the county that Alex has sued me in, right? So what happened after I prevailed in trial by jury, it was Alex says it was split. Alex got on the air with his attorneys and said all kinds of misleading information, defamed me, I believe, very clearly by presenting me, casting me in a false negative light, whatever. And I've for years up to this date remained harassed by those false presumptions, violated the court seal that they demanded be imposed. A court seal means nobody from the public can see the documents, whatever, or in my case, even go to hearings, which is another issue. Like, it's a serious matter. Like, everybody has a right to attend hearings, and, jumping over the bar of closing a court hearing is a serious bar. And it's clearly not for anybody's interest, but, Alex and his actions, because under these sealed hearings, they're sealing away my free speech. They're taking it away, right? But basically, he was saying, I don't get a jury. Well, yes, he does. He missed his opportunity to preserve, his ability to defend whatever liability he had, but he has the time now with the jury to try and mitigate with his defense, the damages he will incur, the monetary damages or whatever else is going to happen to him, right? So he has that, but I had it, and they took it away from me, and they took it away from me unlawfully. And I'm not going to get into that now.
Let me just finish my point about how Alex works and operates through that video, because it's very clear, and how he won't stop, how he will not stop.
He can't stop, Rob. If he stops, then he loses, and if he loses, then you win, and he can't let that happen.
Well, this is right. This is what
it's an imperative.
This is what he.
And it's pretty sad, right? And when all of it is taken years ago, look, I'm gonna let you talk. I'm not trying to. I just want to make a point. Like, it is sad because, like, the rattlesnake, the person that can't stop, the person who can't control themselves, his attorneys. Like, what happened to these people, these parents of these kids? Their kids were killed. They were kids wearing Spider-Man t-shirts and going to second grade carrying lunchboxes. They had their kids made non-people, and worse than that, made out to be fake actors and all of this. If you're an attorney and this case comes before you, what do? You say, come on, Alex. apologize and make this right to these people. Apologize back in 2018 when they finally get somebody to represent them after this has already happened to them for 6 years. Because let's face it, nobody wants to go up against free speech systems or InfoWars.
Let me describe what he does. So he could just, it's step by step in that video. First, he tells half truths. He doesn't get he threatens people. He doesn't get a jury. That means you don't get a jury. America's ruined. That means he doesn't. But he doesn't tell the full truth. And he's not even telling even a half truth there. He's telling a Nathan truth. Then he goes on and he gaslights. And he says, oh, I never even said that about Sandy Hook, which he entertained that idea about the Sandy Hook parents being crisis actors for years. He made videos about them. He taught Anderson Cooper didn't have a nose with a green screen. They're on two different sets. They, the guy.
And it wasn't just the parents, right? It was the kids.
Right. Right. Well, let me finish. I'll tell you everything he did. The fact of the matter is he went into depth about how they are crisis actors, how Posner, the parent of one of the children, who is involved in one of the cases, how he chuckled at a joke before one of the cameras rolled. And that is proof positive that man is an actor. And, how you can't be grieving and somebody tells you something funny and you smile. Impossible. Therefore, that's proof positive. And he went on that for weeks, if not months. He talked about, he had this guy, Wolfgang Halbig, on countless times. And I mean countless. And this guy, Wolfgang Halbig, is not a witness. He's nothing. He's somebody who used to be an old school, security superintendent of some sort, some kind of security manager for schools. And Wolfgang tried to get documents which he was not allowed to have. Again, proof positive. So in the video that Alex just produced last night or something, Alex talks about how he just questioned it briefly, and he always, he immediately came out, but then he questioned other things like the Gulf of Tonkin. I mean, this is a standard go-to. So he gaslights and he changes the story around, or to the point where most of them aren't even his listeners back in the day when he was doing Sandy Hook, but now he is. So,
and also, Rob, I mean, fundamentally what he's done by doing all of that, which I believe was his video was entirely hypocritical, and I believe it's deceptive trade. If you're saying, buy my supplements because it supports free speech, I'm a free speech victim, I can, delay these people justice for years because I have my free speech, whatever. And you're suppressing somebody else's. And, I don't think that's truthful. I think you're making money off of something that you're deceiving people, gullible, ignorant people into believing, right? But what he did, the general spin of the whole video is not, first of all, it's to sort of shirk all of his responsibilities, obviously, to gaslight, to misconstrue the history, which also of itself is somewhat defamatory, I think, right? But it's really to derive all attention away to that towards this free speech victim stance so he can get more donations. That's what I feel like. I mean,
more donations.
How did you read it?
I read it as it's just his same old game. And he knows that he sort of like, when you have one trick that works every single time, you just do that trick over and over and over again. And his trick is not exactly simple. It's slightly complex. So most people aren't going to pick up on it right away. It involves telling half-truths and gaslighting and going to this old bag of stories that, oh, look, we told you about Gulf of Tonkin incident, which was proved by the press, and some story that.
Also, I think Rob, in that case, like from what I understand, and I don't have access to all the pleadings, I don't have time to look at them, or I have attended one hearing, and I was concerned by what I heard at the hearing, and I've been trying to testify if I can and provide the plaintiff's information. I'm not represented by counsel, so they can't speak to me, and I'm not represented because I can't afford it because I've been sued. But what I wanted to ask you is about, you've been in litigation with Alex and these tactics, that are going on behind the scenes with you, right? Like,
yes.
What is your experience with that?
Well, besides, after being questioned by the Sandy Hook lawyers, which seemed pretty routine, pretty normal, Alex's lawyers were exceptionally aggressive and almost showcasing themselves, which I felt was, flamboyant is what they were acting like.
And they asked you questions that you thought, you talked to me, we talked.
At first they asked me, questions. They gave me a lot of gotcha questions in the beginning, which, obviously tried to mess up my character or whatever. But the gotcha questions were so out of the ballpark. It just was like, what? Why are you asking me about
And by out of the ballpark, give me an example. So they asked you questions. When we spoke, you said they basically accused you of stuff that they should have known they couldn't accuse you of because they should have had evidence or had the evidence of these accusations prior to that, right?
Right. At first, they asked me simple gotcha questions like, what year did you graduate high school, which happened, 25, 30 years ago. It's like, why does it say this on your LinkedIn page? Just simple gotcha questions. But at the end of the questioning, it was a full-on assault of nothing but lies and misrepresentation, including the same old stuff. Wow. But this was so, as Kelly mentioned before, I just got finished with an operation. This was the second in a series of operations, one that happened 17 years ago as well, which when I first met Alex. And the lawyer actually claimed that Alex paid for that surgery. And it shocked me. It absolutely blew me away. And I was like, do you have a receipt? Did Alex show you a receipt for this surgery? How could you possibly say this in court without you seeing a receipt from Alex first? Because that's a pretty egregious lie. So it occurred to me, and that wasn't it. Alex,
let me ask you, let me break in real quick with John. John, if your client is presenting to you something that would be a very, extreme central material fact or something like that, like, okay, Alex, say whoever is a good guy or whatever they were trying to represent by saying he paid for an operation, I understand that attorneys, you guys have this fiduciary duty to your clients, but is there generally a duty to make sure that the argument or the questioning and deposition, which can become testimony in a court of law, which is testimony, right, to my understanding, do they have a duty to assure that the line of questioning they're pursuing has factual basis?
Unfortunately, no, because the standard for when you're engaging in discovery, and depositions are part of discovery, is that you don't necessarily have to get admissible evidence. Discovery, it's designed for you to be able to get facts that could lead to the discovery of admissible evidence. So discovery sweeps a lot more broadly than if, say, a trial were going on.
Right. Okay. But when somebody asks you something in trial or in a hearing or write something in a pleading, they can't just say it, right? Like they have to have a factual basis for saying it. If they're asserting something as a fact or arguing towards that fact, of course, they can be trying to discover the fact in a hearing, which I think is probably not advisable, right? That's not usually what attorneys do. But if you're asserting a fact as an attorney, like in your statements to the court in writing or in oral argument, then you can't say something that's not true. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because what happens in court is, quite a bit different than what happens actually in discovery. And because like if you file something with court, when you sign something, as an attorney, what you're representing to the court is that all the factual representations, are made in good faith and based on a reasonable investigation into those facts and legal arguments. And the same standard applies when you're actually in court.
Okay, so what I want to do is, Rob, I want you to sort of, I know you're not feeling great. Thank you for coming on after the surgery. I know that you've, gone through a lot yourself with your own discrimination and harassment case. and, you know, against free speech systems, that, I mean, am I right to say you left town, you moved out of Austin because you were concerned?
Yes, Alex, I actually saw him in my parking lot, driving through the parking lot, and it was very disturbing. I used to live, you know, footsteps away from the office. So at that point, I realized it was time to leave, and I left. And, you know, just to wrap it up really quick, the thing about Alex is he has zero remorse for what's going on. He is just amplifies his message that he's always right, and he will always have this army of people, these lawyers that will, you know, more or less, you know, aid him to doing this, and more, you know, we can see right now he doesn't stop. I just was on the Infowars page, and it was the first time I was there for a long time, and it was just absolutely tragic to look at all the things going on his page.
Yeah. And I mean, Chris, you know, I'm gonna bring you in really quick. Chris and Rob, like, and myself, like, what does it feel like to y'all? Like, do you feel a responsibility, you know, to speak out against things that concern you, that have been empowered, or, you know, I don't know if the right word is bastardized, such as this free speech argument, you know, on Infowars, that has gotten so much coverage and have been such a source of national discussion? How do you guys feel about, you know, why are you guys on here today, basically, in this room?
For me, I guess, go ahead, Rob, go ahead.
Okay. You know, I feel responsible to the point where, you know, I was part of it, but I don't, you know, just like everybody else probably, or a percentage of the people who work at Infowars right now, you know, I you know, until I educated myself, and so I started reading for myself and picking up my own books and all this other stuff, I fell for a lot of these tricks, which are extremely transparent to me right now. And I feel that, you know, if a personality like Alex isn't stopped, he's going to continue to wreak havoc. And I feel, yes, there's a piece of responsibility, being a participant in the past, that I have to, you know, share with people. So hopefully they themselves can be enlightened to the fact that this man is a gaslighter, and he is a liar. I mean, a straight up liar. And
I want to hop in, and I know that Chris, like myself, like, I have, I'm on Twitter at Real Kelly Jones. I don't have very many people here, but I'm hoping to be able to put this out in a way that I can still put it out to the public, this conversation that we're having, that will be completely, you know, apart from any access that my children might have, which has always been my goal. I mean, I've blocked everything that they could access. But, you know, the one thing that always resonated with me, and I have the reason why I mentioned Twitter is because I have a largely liberal following, and I look at our country as divided as it is now. But fundamentally, I know that I'm 100% a constitutionalist from what I understand that to be. And so, you know, the original sort of, you know, manifestation of Infowars back in whenever it was, yeah, there was plenty bad wrong with it, but that was around when the Patriot Act was coming out and all this stuff about overreaching, you know, police controls and all of this different stuff. And so for me, it's always, you know, one thing that is really important to me is, you know, our beautiful constitutional republic, or, you know, and we get into the Republican Democratic thing, whatever. I am just for America and the fundamental, you know, principles on which it was founded. You, Chris?
Yeah. I mean, I'm as purple as you can get when it comes to politics. And I'm somebody who, hey, you know, I think that people are accountable. People are accountable for what they do. People are accountable for their actions. And especially whenever because the good lawyer brought up a while ago the idea behind free speech. It's free speech is great until your free speech treads upon somebody else's rights. until your free speech comes into violation of somebody else's space or somebody else, it's tough. And much like Rob was one of the many people that was absolutely like, you can't be saying this about Sandy Hook parents.
Right. And you know what?
This didn't happen.
Yeah.
You could say say what you're trying to say 118 different ways, and it would not be libel.
Well,
it would not be, anything like that. And yeah, it was definitely something that,
but it's wrong.
Well, it's absolutely wrong, and it's wrong to feed off of it. And, even I've even brought up the point of
seminary, right?
Well, yeah, but beyond that, because I'm a human being, I'm fallible, and I've made some horrible mistakes in my life. However, it's one of those that you can't say that and not be held accountable. You can't decry that the court system is imbalanced against you while you actively imbalance a court system against somebody else.
Right. And I again want to just reiterate that I did this room, and which is, I hope will get put out into a broader audience under protections because of because my heart breaks. My heart breaks for the Sandy Hook parents. And Chris, I just want to say a couple things here.
Go ahead.
That no justice can ever bring back, their child's hand in theirs, and that while they've been grieving a loss that I do not, and thankfully, hopefully never will have to understand of their own children's tragic, violent death, right? That while this has been going on, they've been harassed. And the reason why I say that now and why I wanted to interrupt is for two reasons. First of all, I just want to come back to this human point. I think we've had a lot of legal discussion, and I think, we have liberties and laws and things of that nature because to protect actually just people, like human life, like our rights, our pursuit of happiness, whatever it may be, right?
Sure.
And when I'm gonna do two things here to kind of segue back to the video that I think we should show and let John talk a little bit before, and I'm gonna kind of interrupt a couple times through it. But what I want to say from a faith-based position, right? And I think that it's important for people to understand that I and many others who go through injustice, and not everybody, but I have turned to my faith. And I believe, I'm a Christ follower. I believe in the teachings of Jesus Christ and the word as it's written, right? Like I'm very by the book, like the law is by the book. And I read this and it speaks to my heart and it supports me while I'm going through this. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is, there's a whole nother issue about the Christian faith being misused to misguide people. Yeah. And to me, it's particularly appalling, this misuse by people who are actively engaged in very clearly unethical actions, such as, causing these poor parents horrible grief. Like there's no bridge between a court of law and your ethical obligation to your faith, if that's the faith you proclaim, when you're taking these actions, right? And the reason why I'm saying that now is because actually you were in the seminary, right, Chris?
Yes.
Yes. That's my understanding. And so just let me finish up. I'm going to let you give your opinion on that. And then we're just going to kind of wrap up on that human note and then sort of go into this video briefly and have John talk about his impressions of it, and Rob too, and you, Chris, whoever wants to.
I'm actually, I'm going to have to step out about now.
Okay, well, Rob, thank you for being here. When you've gone through this recent, operation, get better quick. I'll call you, and hopefully we can do this in a more organized way with more planning, so more people will be able to hear what I think is a very important discussion.
Okay, thank you for having me.
Okay.
Take care, Rob. Get well, bud.
All right, goodbye, Chris. Yeah, good to speak to everybody. Goodbye.
And bye, Rob. So, Chris, from a faith-based or even just a human position, like ultimately you can sue people till tarnation and you can argue your right to do this or that or the other, but ethically as a human being or as a Christ follower or a Christian or whatever, what? Like, how is this? Is it justifiable? You know?
No, not at all. Not at all. And you know, that's one of the things that I bring up whenever people ask me about him all the time. Like, you got to put the shoe on the other foot, and you got to be ready for the shoe to drop at the same time, you know, because sadly, like Rob was saying, he is his own unstoppable force, and it's to his own detriment. It's one of those, like, all his lawyers can do is be like, I don't think you should say that. Okay, then I'll say it like this. And they just have to kind of deal with it.
That's very possible. Yeah,
You know?
that's very possible. And I think they're probably also afraid of him. Yeah.
Well,
right?
Well, I mean, hey, perhaps. I don't know. I can't really speak to that. I can definitely speak to the fact that there was that air about the office all the time of, you know, you never know when you're going to see somebody just be dismissed immediately.
Right. And like,
that.
describe that a little bit. Like, did you feel like as a person, as a human person, like he was frightening or controlling to the employees? Or?
I wouldn't say that he was frightening or controlling, because I never really like felt fear myself. You know, but and I can't really speak to what other people felt. However, would I say, from the point of view of somebody who was a former youth minister and somebody who worked with children, that he was a little bullyish? Oh, yeah.
Right. And when you said you never knew.
He definitely had his way, and this is how it was going to work, regardless.
Right. And so when people were dismissed, do you feel like, you know, because my position too is that's a bit, you know, it's sort of, I've said it in court, like I feel like it's very cultic, you know, it's a very sort of cultic environment. I do. That's my position. And of course I grew, you know, I was married to him and all of this stuff. Right. But, like once you're out, right? Like once you're out, that's it. And is he happy with the people? Does he have any kind of like continuum relationship with people, or?
Not that I ever saw, as far as like former people that worked there or anything like that. I can't say that there was ever any kind of continued relationship. Would there be things said about folks that had left or had been fired or let go? Sure. You know, I definitely heard that. And there was a lot of locker room type talk, that kind of stuff.
Right. And I remember, like Rob said, you know, that he felt like Alex had been in his parking lot. He moved away. My personal experience is,
well, I mean,
you know,
you were married to the man for years, but on top of that, you also had him like hanging out of a helicopter, bullhorning your house, you know.
Well, he wasn't bullhorning, but he was hovering very low, and he was making a video and saying, "Oh, look, there's Kelly." Like I wanted him to be there, which clearly I did not want, you know. And there was also a suspicious drone on my property a couple weeks ago, and a camera pointed into my gate, and blah blah blah.
I have to say, with Alex's voice, he didn't need a bullhorn.
Yeah, and that's just it, you know, like. He doesn't need a bullhorn regardless, or a microphone or anything like that. He is a loud and proud individual, fully happy to do so and be so, unapologetic.
With millions of dollars to serve his own bandwidth, right? Well, like it was this huge thing.
No, well, and that's honestly, and we say these things, folks, you know, I hold no ill will toward the man. I have questions about, you hold yourself on a righteous pedestal, yet still you got this going on in the background. And whenever you're talking about the article, or not the article, but the video that he released, it's really one of those, all you can really do is play the video, man, and hear some of it.
Yeah, I think that's
because you can take what we're saying out of context, or you can take what we're saying in context with what you're about to hear directly from his mouth about the parents of Sandy Hook, about the entire Sandy Hook incident, about everything from that day till now and the judgment against him. And like Rob was saying, the gaslighting, one specific tactic he used was the same tactic that, that regular media uses. How flashy can we make that headline? And if you look at it, he would always say, deconstruct what the media would write and write it like that. And if you take away First Amendment in Texas judge crucified Alex Jones in Sandy Hook case. And that's what the headline would read if it was the regular media. Instead, his headline reads, Texas judge crucifies First Amendment in Alex Jones in Alex Jones / Sandy Hook case. Not Sandy Hook case like parents of Sandy Hook v. Alex Jones, which is what the case was. He brings up the defendant before the victims.
Right, and of course there's that crucifixion reference,
and
right?
then the crucifixion of the First Amendment. No,
yes, exactly.
No, because what you did has nothing to do with the First Amendment, nothing at all. So,
well, it does in a way, insofar as what we opened this room with, which is a discussion about, the tactical legal delays. Yes. That the positions that Alex and his counsel took regarding the First Amendment, it does in that way. And of course, I believe that has subjected those Sandy Hook parents to years of unnecessary additional grief, right?
Absolutely.
And towards that, I'm going to let John maybe give just like a little opener again about the First Amendment, because again, we're hoping to get this out to a larger audience. And that's what this is about. This is about, the ruling, what went down, the human tragedy of it all, and I believe really misleading information about an entity that makes money that's based off of an LLC called Free Speech System. So, John, you want to give a little opening to the video, and then we'll play it, and everybody hop off?
I'm sure. Yeah, I just wanted to raise just a couple of things that are particularly striking about the video is how he is essentially railing against him being deprived of his First Amendment right to petition the government. Yet it was his tactics, by delaying discovery, basically blowing things off, making things as difficult, to actually deprive these two poor parents of their right to petition the government through the courts to be able to get redress for Alex's things, for his doings.
Yeah.
And so, the hypocrisy is extremely palpable. And kind of going back to something that you said earlier, Kelly, talking about the gag order that was placed on you in your litigation with Alex. It plays into Alex's whole "good for me but not for thee" kind of viewpoint on the First Amendment, where he sits here and says, "Well, I can sit here and I can talk about how I think the judge did the wrong thing." Of course, his lawyers will probably try and couch it, saying, if this is brought up in front of the judge, saying, "Oh, he wasn't criticizing the judge. What he was doing was criticizing the media coverage of what the judge did." I suspect that would be it. But it really comes down to, in my opinion, Alex seems to clearly believe that content-based prior restraints on speech are okay.
So for the layperson, that means that specific things that he believes that it's okay to say that you cannot talk about this specific content or discuss this content or put this content out there in the future, right? That would be what that is for a layperson, right?
Yeah. A prior restraint is a court saying you can't talk, because the general line of redress is you speak, and then whatever consequences happen from your speech, that happens, whether it be legal action or public blowback, things like that. That's the normal response. But a prior restraint is a judge saying, no, you can't talk about this before you even say anything.
And how often does that happen in a court of law?
Not very often. I mean, but that's because most people don't ask for that outside, the context of someone making threats or harassment or things like that.
Right. So it's an unusual request, right?
Yeah, and it's kind of a boneheaded request, and it's really kind of a dumb request to make in the state of Texas because back in the early '90s, Texas Supreme Court held that the Texas Constitution actually protects more speech than the federal Constitution does.
Mm.
Right. And so an attorney making that request would have that, probably be aware of that, right? I would think. I mean, generally. Or they would have a duty to understand that request, right? Isn't that kind of like Law 101?
Yeah, you would think.
Okay. Okay, so I think that's the central point here is the hypocrisy of the victim stance.
Yeah.
And sort of this, and I think it's important too, Chris, like the propaganda. I'm glad that you guys got into that because this is how people are misled.
Yeah.
With really inherently misleading information to fund, by buying things or giving donations to a platform that is actually engaged in completely hypocritical actions to that which it says it's been victimized from, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Precisely.
Okay. Should we go to the video?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Let's take it.
Okay.
Well, the Huffington Post and other establishment publications are beside themselves with glee. Look at their headline right here. Alex Jones just lost 2 Sandy Hook cases. A judge said, that's right, they're getting rid of juries in America. Every basic form of American liberty is being abolished and overthrown as we speak. There
you go.
Pause for a second. They're getting rid of juries in America. Alex is going to a jury trial on this case. He just violated he'd already been sanctioned. His attorneys have been sanctioned. He'd been sanctioned for not answering discovery requests. Discovery is an important part of the legal process. It's actually pretty cool because you have to tell people what you have or you don't have, right? In defense or as a plaintiff or whatever. Okay.
Well,
so he has a jury.
And I would also just throw this out there. The right to a jury it can be waived.
Sure.
And he waived it through his conduct. It's essential, on the issue of liability.
Right. And the liability for the layperson. Yeah.
Oh, sure. So when you get a default judgment as a defendant, what that does is that admits every allegation in the plaintiff's complaint. So everything the plaintiff alleged is taken as being proven.
Right. And the opposite of that, just so in my experience too, is what's called the summary judgment. Mm-hmm. If you're the plaintiff and you don't have any evidence, they say your case is out, right? Well, that's happened to me, and a default judgment has been pursued against me in family court, which is totally, to my understanding, not normal or allowed, right? But he's so offended by this default judgment that he could have avoided by years ago, by, I believe, originally meeting his ethical obligation to just apologize, but also by just answering, he's in this lawsuit. You got to do what they ask you to do, right? Like, this is your obligation.
You mean plus, once again, losing? He would have to lose. Yeah.
Right. And once the judge issued the default, the reason we have juries are to decide disputed facts. But once the default's entered, there are no more disputed facts on the issue of liability.
Yeah.
Right. That means that he's been found by the judge that he's responsible for what the plaintiffs have pled or what they're suing him for, right? And now he's going to the jury who's going to decide the damages that he's going to be ordered to pay or other things he's going to be ordered to do, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, let's go forward.
Okay, let's listen to the next part of this.
Coming after me because I'm standing in their way. They're coming after me because they're coming after you.
Oh, there's the teaser.
The left in this country has completely weaponized the legal system and the judiciary. There are so many examples of it. But just in the last few days, a decorated lieutenant colonel who came out and criticized the hasty, horribly organized withdrawal of Afghanistan is sitting in a military stockade, in a brig, in a prison, without even being charged with a crime yet, and he's already been there 5 days. We live in a country where...
Okay, can we pause for one more second there?
Pretty sure he's liable to a military court of justice, which is totally different.
What and I want to actually also state, here he is making this right, and we can ask John about that. Actually, I pulled up the article. I have it here about this Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller. He's not a colonel; he's a lieutenant colonel, apparently. But what I wanted to point out is this partisan spin, and it's just us now, you guys. That's okay. We can stay on here for a few more minutes and close up, and maybe do this again after this, initial trial thing a little bit better. But he's making this a partisan issue. He's making it about the left weaponizing the legal process. I mean, my experience, Alex has sued PayPal. Alex has sued somebody running for office. Alex has just in the past couple of weeks sued the FAA. Alex has, delayed discovery response and done things that he shouldn't do. And appealed and appealed and appealed. And so who is weaponizing the legal process? And also just coincidentally, right? Yeah. The judges that have given the rulings that he's requested, including the gag orders on me, they're all elected judges in the state of Texas, and they all ran on a Democratic ticket. They're Democrats, right? So he's getting rulings from liberal judges and has told them, that and it has caused me, I believe, by, pulling to their bias to lose my kids, that I've said bad things about their rulings, which I have every right to do, which should not impact their decisions in my case, in this case, as he's filed against me. But it's just misleading, right? John, do you know anything about the Afghanistan thing, about being held in the brig while you're awaiting charges or something like that?
I have no. It's really not my area, but I know that the military, they have their whole separate system of justice, which is why they have court martials and things like that.
Yeah,
that the rest of us aren't subject to.
Yeah, precisely. The military code of justice is entirely different. The way their court system operates is entirely different. Even holding a suspect,
right, and
how you can hold a suspect, or anything like that, is entirely different. You are no longer on that base and in that uniform. You are no longer like a citizen the way that you are on the outside. You're accountable to a different system entirely.
And that's our understanding, right? We're not, military attorneys at law. None of this. None of us are attorneys except for John.
It would be like if somebody wanted to take up a criminal case against Alex. That's a totally different court than a civil case.
Right. Okay, let's go back to that audio.
From New York to California to Louisiana are arrested repeatedly for holding church services while Walmart down the street is open. That's the country we live in. And now we're told that there are mandates for forced inoculations and $700,000 fines that is in the new stimulus bill if employers don't enforce it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is America.
Let's stop it for a second. Let's stop it for a second, because I know people have different views on vaccination, and I believe, like every medical thing, that you have a right to decide if you have that right, for yourself or for the children that are, that you have a duty and right to treat or not treat, whatever, right? That's your decision, right? Well, I wasn't able to have the decision that I wanted, which was and I'm sure many people, you, Chris, might even disagree with this, but the ability to vaccinate my child, right, from a preventable disease that can be fatal, that she ended up getting, that caused her to miss over a month of school and to be seriously ill.
Yeah.
And so I believe that the gag on my situation, like the gag on my speech generally, is hiding information from the public who are believing a person or an entity saying how terrible vaccination is, when their refusal to vaccinate has caused, I believe, what's very clear physical injury to my child, and impacted her education and development through that time that she missed, which is a lot of time for a kid in school, right?
Sure.
So, and I also want to point out,
the real question is, would the lack of that vaccine cause the same issue, the same way that a vaccine would cause autism, and the way that he brought that up in the show so many times? So, if you reverse
I'm pretty clear that a kid of the age that my kid was did not get autism, and I think all of that's pretty debunked. I'm glad that my child can now be vaccinated, but they took that right away from me without legal authority after I prevailed in a trial by jury. So it's been a really painful thing for me, and just generally, like being denied the ability to help my child when she was very ill and went without diagnosis for serious things that are recognized under 504 now, because I finally was able to help her. Yeah. Like, that was very painful and very hard for me as a parent. And I believe that, honestly, I really have a lot of personal experience with that and with, the beliefs of, the central beliefs of the person that leads an entity that puts this information out, that being very medically irresponsible and I believe very clearly negligent, Yeah. So I have really big concerns about them putting out anything medical, because it's not really about that. Number one, it's about, just to me, like this video, like everything getting attention, staying in the public eye, whatever. But it's also, it's misleading and potentially very endangering, I think.
Well,
so there you go.
Yeah, go ahead. Thank you. I also think, because Alex likes to use right speech. He likes to talk about rights.
Yep.
Well, also professing to have kind of a libertarian bent to him. Now, the problem with that is rights don't really tell you much about liberty, because rights, they have duties that go along with those rights, and it's the duties that actually infringe the liberty. So rather than engaging in right speak, you should be engaging in duty speak. If that makes sense.
Okay, break that down a little bit more for us.
Okay, sure. Okay, if I have a right not to be hit by you, then you have a duty. Let me put this. Okay, if I have a right not to be hit by you, then you have a duty not to hit me. And it's that duty. It's that duty that limits somebody's liberty. In that case, it'd be your liberty.
And if a child has a right to medical care, then you have a duty to provide it to them, right?
Exactly.
Okay, got it. That's really actually very helpful information, and I am so grateful to everybody who's here. I hope that we can arrange, maybe next week, early sometime, to continue this discussion, to go through the video more. I'm sorry I have to hop off myself.
No, that's all right.
And I'm really grateful to everybody for supporting, the Sandy Hook parents, for talking about kind of trying to break down to America really what the central concept of free speech and people that, or an entity that stands on a free speech platform.
Yeah.
The validity of that. And anybody want to say anything in closing?
Well, in response to the video, once again, go watch the video, people. Feel free to go watch it. It's there on his website. So much is it his video. It's on a website that he made. So it's literally what he says and what he believes. And when you have to make equivocations to something else to explain and justify your actions, you've got a moral quandary. That's just how a moral quandary is born. And when you have to make equivocations to pastors and what they're preaching in church, pastors against vaccination or anything like that, to the fact that words came out of my mouth and they hurt other people and they caused them harm, and they were almost a call to action to other people to go cause them harm. The leap of logic cannot be made there. They're not the same. They are not. So in no way, shape, or form has his First Amendment right been trod upon. No way, shape, or form. As a matter of fact, The fact that he was able to lose the court case, be held liable for damages, and be able to make this video says the fact that his First Amendment right has not been trod upon. If his First Amendment right was trod upon, his ISP would be getting rid of him. He wouldn't be on the internet right now, and there would be an injunction against him. That would be trotting upon his First Amendment right.
Exactly.
His IP address would be
Chris.
shut down.
And thank you so much for coming on. Yeah, and that's such a good point. And I look forward to tuning into your podcast.
Thank you.
On your network. Go ahead and tell people again. Christopher Jordan
was self-promotion
was an
time.
on-air producer. Yeah, on-air producer at Infowars for a while, and he's still involved in media production. He has his own network and an award-winning podcast. Tell us about it, and thank you so much, Chris.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, for talking about this. It's something that I feel passionately about. Once again, I hold no ill will towards Alex. What I hold ill toward is using knowledge against people, and using knowledge as a means by which to guide people down the wrong path, and not taking accountability for doing said action. That's what I have a problem with. So, thank you so much for coming on. Like I've told you before, Kelly, you will always have a voice on my show, on my network. You will always have a home on Anchor. Feel free to stop on by and check it out, folks. Dudes and Beer will soon, actually, in December, become Curious Realm. And nothing against free speech at all. It's just the fact that Facebook and other things won't let you promote a show with beer in the word. They won't let you make an ad for it because they don't promote alcohol.
Unless you're Alex, like drinking on the air or whatever.
It's not like Dudes and Michelob, So, yeah, we're changing it because we literally hit a growth wall.
Oh my gosh! So where can listeners find you?
You can find us on any major podcast platform. You can find us on iHeartRadio. You can find us on the HC Universal Network, on our private app, which is also available on dudesandbeer.com. So there you have it.
All right.
And Google CuriousRealm.com. Check it out.
Okay, Serious Realm or Curious Realm, which is it?
Yes, CuriousRealm.com.
CuriousRealm.com. Again, thank you, Chris, for being here.
Thank you.
Your voice, in this particular moment, I think is very important. I cannot thank you enough for the personal support you provided me and your steadfast support. And I'm going to take you up on that offer, my friend. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And in closing, John Duke, attorney at law, thank you for your very valuable time and sort of giving your opinion on, giving us information, instructing us, informing us about the legal things that we don't necessarily understand as people. And thanks again for being there. Is there anything you want to say in closing?
Oh, no, just wanted to thank you for, having this and thank Chris. This has been, interesting, for me. And hopefully we can, all do this again soon.
Definitely, I hope so too. And thanks to everybody who's tuned in to listen. I'm hoping to put this out behind some sort of protection so that people who want to hear it and should hear it can hear it. And I've done it in this forum because I am unable to speak publicly. We've been talking about the ruling that came down in the Sandy Hook case yesterday in Texas, a default judgment. My heart, and I think everybody's heart that's in here, goes out to the Sandy Hook parents and what they've endured. And I am so glad that they finally have an indication that all of this will no longer be delayed, that they're going to trial. Or hopefully, my sincerest hope is that, if they want an agreement to just stop all this, that will be the necessarily generous agreement or settlement offer, whatever it may be. But again, no money is ever going to make up for their loss and their harassment during their loss. It's unspeakable, really. So thanks everybody tuning in. I am Kelly Morales, previously known as Kelly Jones. You have been listening to my Alex Jones Censored X Free Speech Safe Room about Sandy Hook. I hope to be posting on here more, and maybe you'll see me soon on Chris's network. What's the network's name again, Chris?
It's the Universal Network.
All right, folks. Thanks for being here. Everybody take care, and always, I think the most important thing for all of us, do to others as you would have it do to you, right? So I'll hope to see you here soon. Take care, and bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Thank you, Kelly, so much for inviting me to be a part of that important conversation. And once again, that happened live on Clubhouse a few days ago when that landmark decision came down against Alex Jones. And once again, feel free to visit his website and hear the words come out of his mouth himself in their entirety. It's 5 minutes of wow, okay, of just leap of logic equivocations. And to me, it's one of those, I take full responsibility and accountability for my words and what we say on this show and how we say it. Only call to action I have is the same one I have all the time. Go Google Curious Realm. That's it. Thank you so much to our guest this evening. Thank you so much to all of you always for tuning in every week for the last, 342 episodes. Till next time, everybody, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And remember, if you can't be good at it. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Dudes and Beer Podcast. To listen to our audio streams or chat with us live, download the official Dudes and Beer app for Android and iDevices, available on Google Play and iTunes markets. For more episodes, content, and information, visit us online at dudesandbeer.com. You can also find our episodes on Breach.tv, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast service. Dudes and Beer is a proud member of the HC Universal Network family of podcasts. About our sponsors and other podcasts on this network, visit hcuniversalnetwork.com. Thanks for listening, everybody, and until next time, drink responsibly.